Do you miss me at all? Do you think about the things we used to do? No, you couldn't stand tall. So why didn't you call? So many years has gone by, but I think about you all the time. Looks like you're changing and all, but why didn't you call? Something in the air, always something in the air. Inexplicable, I can feel it in the air. Can you feel me? Can you feel me? Can you feel me? Do you miss me at all? Do you think about the things we used to do? No, you couldn't stand tall. So why didn't you call? So many years has gone by, but I think about you all the time. Looks like you're changing and all, but why didn't you call? Something in the air, always something in the air. Inexplicable, I can feel it in the air. Can you feel me? Can you feel me? Can you feel me? Can you feel me? Something in the air, always something in the air. Inexplicable, I can feel it in the air. Can you feel me?
Nice.
Hey guys, what is up? Welcome to. Oh, this camera is wrong. Oh, I'm fixing
Just
that
a
first.
little bit.
Welcome to Chain Reaction. Adanas and Srixis are here. It's very special, but I need to move this camera. Oh no!
It's already started.
I told you it's a cloud fiesta.
Oh.
That is
Krasnick.
It's better.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's listen. When I'm here walking around the table testing every mic on my own, going test. I don't check the camera. I just put the camera up there and it works.
Yep.
I have so many sad videos of me just walking around this table because
Oh, no, half the things are wrong.
Yeah.
oh god, that is the
Well,
only thing that's
test
gonna be
two.
wrong this time. Listen, we have production this
Oh,
time.
that's early to say. That's early to say that.
I did play the vomit audio insanely
No.
loud last time.
I
You
remember
remember
that.
Yeah,
I
you
remember
it
that.
happened last week. Of course, you remember it.
That
Anyway,
was bad.
this is Chain Reaction. It is a different one than normal, a little less competitive focused, but still as Paladins focused as always, of course.
Yeah. I mean, I'm down to talk a little bit of pro.
Right, Adonis?
I'm all in.
All in.
All in on eager,
All
baby.
in all the
I'm
time.
good for whatever.
Yeah, but I wanted to be able to. Oh wait, that's the announcement of us. I saw a notification on Discord. I was like, ooh, I wonder what that could be. Oh, it's someone announcing my own
me.
podcast to me. But yeah, I wanted to be able to talk like more in depth about Paladins because like we're here. Like I'm actually here and I can bring you guys in to discuss this, and that's not something we can normally do on this. So I figured it'd be cool to have you guys on, and hopefully it's not taking too much out of your days because I know that you're probably grinding
My
damn
day's
Frontier.
over. Well, I mean, not besides this.
Yeah, I'm like,
My day was over.
My day was over.
Yeah, Kevin's just about to walk out. He's just
All
like,
right, well,
"I'm
thanks
just
for being on, Anthony.
I am a little tired. I went home and took
Yeah.
a shower, and it's the okay, work day's over. Take
Yeah.
a hot shower. Oh God, I don't want to move.
Hot. Can you sell me on hot showers? This is kind
Wait,
of
do you not take hot showers?
I take warm showers. I don't take like scalding showers.
Okay, yeah, I mean that's warm at least,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not talking scalding either.
Oh
I'm
no,
not trying to burn the skin
I-
off my body as I shower.
Some people do.
I step in the shower with the expectation that I'm going to be turning on the cold water a little bit more every time.
You don't like put your hand in and go like, oh, is this?
No, I mean I do a little.
Can we
I
talk about
go
this? Can
foot
we talk about this for
forward.
2 hours and just bait the hell out of every single person who's tuned in?
I
Well,
wait. I let
welcome-
it warm up and then I jump in.
Okay. Welcome to the shower episode of See, this is actually just us inspiring gamers to be a little more hygienic all
Please.
around the
Hell
world.
yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
Been to too many events.
Yeah.
With HRX coming up, I figured it was the best time to start talking
Definitely a
about
good time.
gamer hygiene.
There's DreamHack that handed out deodorant at one of their events.
Did they really?
Really?
Yeah.
Was
I've
it?
seen-
Was it Atlanta?
That's
like Old
bad.
Spice.
I've seen Smash tournaments do that too.
Yeah, I know a lot of
I've-
Smash.
I've
tournaments
smelled
do
Smash
that.
tournaments that needed to do that. Did that.
Oh, I went to a lot of Smash events in college. And yeah, yep.
It's like, oh god, there was shower time with an that's man. Could I rename the episode? You guys mind with that?
Yeah,
Shower
yeah.
time.
I like that name. It's pretty good. I can
That's a
see
good
why.
name. That's a good name.
Absolute cray. But yeah, so I figured we could talk more about because we've had a lot of discussions on the show about like balance and about the bugs in the game and all that different stuff. And I figured that it would be nice to have you guys on to just talk kind of candidly and openly about it. It's also something you guys really don't get to do outside of like your own personal streams too much to the community. I mean, like how long has it been since we've done a Devon site?
Oh.
I mean, technically every patch show is a little.
Is
bit
it
of
like a
different-
little bit?
Mhm.
But like,
right, we do a show for
Yeah.
the patch,
Yeah.
basically.
but that's definitely. I know that's more scripted than like the responses to stuff isn't as, but obviously, but like I mean,
it's topic scripted. It's like
Mhm.
okay, here's
Yeah.
here's what we're covering topic wise, and then people generally we already
Like
have
come up
ideas.
with points and all that.
Ad-libs, and we
Yeah.
generally have ideas of what we want to talk about
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
things to begin with.
But we don't like. It's not like when we go into balance. It's not like we'll spend like a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I already know the reasons. Like
yeah, of course.
Yeah. And a
before
lot-
I go on, I'm like, these are the reasons we changed these.
Yeah.
Things. So
Yeah,
it's
of
not
course.
much of a
Mhm.
like.
Well, because
have
it's
to
the
say
same.
it exactly.
Yeah,
like
well, it's the
this.
same reasons why you made the changes in the first place,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Just reiterating thought
yeah,
process.
exactly.
A lot of fun.
To the
Great.
public in general.
Yeah.
But-
and a lot of those, the community kind of already understands.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Mhm.
you go in and you're
Like-
like, Cassie alt nerf.
That
Yeah.
definitely
Thank
was
you,
not a
thank
problem
you, by the
before.
way, because
Yeah.
I have been saying for so long that Scout was like
Insane.
people. Everyone's
bloated.
just like, oh, exactly. It's a bloated kit in
Mhm.
general, and now it's being toned down. Same with Leon. They had to have so many answers to so many things.
We had a playtest recently where somebody felt the Leon changes. That was this afternoon.
Yeah, I
someone-
felt it too.
Yeah, I haven't played her in a
There's-
playtest specifically, but like people were like, "Oh wow, I died."
So that's
Like,
part of it.
oh.
It's just like it's more choice for the player, or
Yeah.
it's more thought. Like they have to think.
It's
more
interactive.
during
It's
every-
interactive.
It's not like okay, my
This
health
answers
is in
all
red, press
problems.
this button,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is what it has been.
And that's one of the things I've always liked about Paladins, at least for me in comparison to Overwatch. Like I was like me and Bunny both played Overwatch at a
Yeah.
professional level, and like
See if I got the
From-
jersey on.
I do. It was my comfiest shirt that I had today. I know. It doesn't say it
The
anywhere. It just has
flag.
my
Listen,
name on it.
you can never hate comfy shirts.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
comfy. Dude totally shows up to work like every other day wearing his Fnatic jersey. I swear. He changes out of it, but he's like always wearing it. But I was gonna say one of the things I liked about it in comparison was that the ultimates never felt like an always good option.
Oh,
They've
yeah.
changed that since I stopped playing because now most of the ults you lose it if you use it and die.
Mhm.
But like I can use a dragon punch and it can be bad. You know,
Mhm.
like I can use and now like but Scout and Enlightenment. If I ever press Scout and I was always like, oh, that was an awful use of Scout. It's like I'm always
Whatever.
getting wall hacks. I'm always CCing you, and there was never a downside. And I
Mhm.
think that like toning ults down that have no downside, they're always good to throw out. I think is a really good idea.
Yeah,
Mhm.
generally, right. It's more like, well, what is this ult trying to do? And it's like, what is the identity of the ult? What is it doing for the character?
Yeah.
And it's like, you want to reveal everyone, but why do you have CC immunity for casting?
Yeah.
And
Like,
movement.
all it
Ziggs,
does
and-
is
Ziggs,
just,
Ziggs
like-
was just holding her back, baby. She's gone. The weights are off.
Funny enough, then it like changes like what it is meant to do for the kit too when it's CC like because people will use it exclusively for CC immune. It just happens to be
It's just
the
the
reveal
reveal
at sometimes.
Yeah.
Probably less So at
Yeah.
a high level, probably like definitely like strong coordination of like, okay, alt now. But a lot of times people in normal games especially will just be like, okay, I'm fighting an Atlas. I'm just gonna pop this and kill you.
Yeah, and now his
Yeah.
his counterplay is gone. Whereas like now, if I just get movement speed, maybe I could do something. Like anything that just gives the player more options and not
To counter.
the
Yeah.
option, right? I think is good. Like even if it just like refreshed cooldowns or something, like you could roll and then be like, I need another roll to get out of here. My 15-second cooldown is up on somersault. Is the sound really low? That's what I was worried about.
Is it me specifically? I'm not necessarily next to the mic.
Yeah, like because I'm talking right into the mic and they aren't. So
Yeah, if it's
I can tone it up.
I'll just put it up in general.
I can turn it up, but I'm a little worried. I would not even get close to touching that because I messed with that earlier.
Uh-oh.
no.
Uh-oh.
Wait, someone just said, "Yeah, I think you did something, Bunny."
Did I?
Stop,
Wait, was that
don't
me?
you dare! Do not
Wait,
dare!
was that Bunny or was that me?
That was definitely. Oh.
because
that was probably
I
me.
like lifted the mic up and was like hello into the.
All right. Well, was it like static, guys? Because if it was static, it was definitely
Oh,
Bunny.
it was probably me.
Dude, don't just touch it. I told you, man. I have problems with this every week, and then you just show up and you're like, "Woo! A puppeteer." All right, hold on. Let me crank the decibels. Static? Yeah, that's the problem. When I crank, this might have some static in the background. When I do this, let me know.
I'm guessing it's still staticky.
No, because it would be showing up down there if it was staticky.
Okay.
I'm gonna swap. Well, you guys mess with that. I'm gonna swap chairs because I like
Superior
having the
chair.
higher back.
Okay, I might be dummy loud now.
Have it locked.
I might be dummy loud now, but if everyone else talks,
Hello. Hello.
yeah, let everybody know.
Hello. One,
Much
two,
better?
three.
Okay.
Am I fine?
You might have to
P's
move
and
up a
B's.
little tiny bit.
Oh, can.
Yep.
Yeah, that one gives.
You're feeling the chair now?
Well, it was I
Much
just
better?
wanted the
All right,
back,
cool.
But the this wasn't quite locked.
It's
so.
better.
Yeah, all right, cool.
So
Awesome.
definitely
go.
touch
Better.
that again. Okay.
Yeah.
Sick.
But yeah, so what was I just saying? I was talking about like, yeah, just having alts that are more interactive that give you choices. Like if using your alt is always the best choice, then it's like not good in the flow of like making the game deeper, right? Like if using scout to just get speed to get away or to refresh your cooldowns, if that was what it did, that's like a much better, I think, space for ultimates to be in general, because that is what drew me as a player of another game to this one specifically. The ults not
Overwatch
being
was all
so
about
controlling.
alts.
Well,
yeah.
that's why. I mean, it's not the only reason, but that's one of the reasons why like things like morale boost are a thing, or things like
Yeah.
ultimate boost cards and talents are a thing, because it gives you this option to like lean into your ult as like a play style a little bit
Or
more,
more of a cooldown.
right?
Yeah.
Without it being like over centralizing.
And morale boost, I think, is seeing. I love the space it's filling right now on supports too. Like the supports
For
that
sure.
don't need Chronos. I was about to say IO, but like, I mean, Beacon is fun, but like morale boost IO.
Yeah.
What was It was an ASMR stream before. Could you guys hear everything we were saying? But everyone probably
Let's
had
hope
it.
so.
Let me guess. Everyone had it cranked all the way up to hear what we were saying, and then
And
you
then
touched the
bam.
goddamn wires, and then here we are. But
Wires are dangerous, man.
anyway, I had an order to these, pretty much. Yeah, okay. I know how these things go. So that my topics are ordered. I'll just give you guys a little bit of a preview, but we're going to talk about how things run down the pipe. We can actually start with this because I kind of like this topic as like a ground floor thing.
This is a good place to start, I think,
Yeah.
from like our perspective too.
Yeah. So we can use ROM as an example, or we can use anything else as an example. I mean, ROM is good because I think he's so fresh. But what is the pipeline like for something, the concept of something, to the final product? Not that this ROM is even final because technically it's not out yet. Like we could still see changes. I know there's still stuff happening, right, with like percentage health and soul armor and healing the soul armor and stuff
There's
like
some
that.
soul armor mechanic changes, but for the
Yeah.
most part, he's the same. It's really how it's interacting with
Yeah, we might ask some
like
questions.
percentage damage HP. Yeah.
We might ask some questions about that too, because I was playing PTS and like my ROM had half HP and like a little bit of soul armor, and I was like, I don't know how he did it. I forget. It just looked like I saw the bar with a little bit in it, and he had health, and I was playing combat medic Pip, and I just could not heal him. My shots just did nothing to the man.
Okay.
So I guess that's
That
I guess
could
it's
be
good
a
to
bug.
send you
That
too.
could be a
It could
bug
just, yeah, it
too.
could be a bug.
Yeah.
But I feel like it might be. It's almost like unclear for supports with the soul armor thing too. But we can ask to clear that up after. But just in general, like let's think like concept of ROM to now. How long in the pipeline does a champion or a map or anything like that normally take?
Very dependent, right? Because there'll be a lot of like back and forth and kind of discussion for, could be a long time. And then it's like, okay, we've got everything written down. Here's the direction we want to go. And then it's like, okay, we're now starting on this character. Champs now take about, I would say, 4 months, probably from like work being started from a programmer / animation and art side to him being, it's probably like 3 months reveal. And then 4 months, like, actual going live is like, okay, we've got everything in.
Yeah, I'd say that's about right. Which is, I mean, what, a little more than, maybe not quite double.
That's
but,
like
it's significantly longer than what it was from like a year ago or something.
Yes.
Well, that's in that phase though that we were just cramming champions into the game at that point. Like,
I think it was like 14 in 1 year or something.
That was the most. That was the most that we've had in 1 year.
That was before I joined, and then
Same,
I worked on IO development. And I was like, how the did they get 14 in 1 year? Because there's just so much work to it.
and they didn't even release like that broken either. Like it wasn't
No.
like these champions releasing like messes.
It was a lot, lot less love and
most.
polish put on
That's true.
champions before,
Yeah.
right? And so a lot of our earlier champions and champions during that time had very clear identities. Where it's like your thing does this and that's it, and nothing else, and there's no extra. And here is your abilities, and they all do one basic thing.
I think the cards kind of sung to that too, because like think about some of the old cards. It was like this ability now gives you lifesteal. This ability will give you raw health. This ability gives you ammo. That's kind of like what the cards all did then.
Yeah.
And now if you look at a character like Io, I mean it's a little more dynamic. If we're using her as an
unique
example.
things for every ability.
Yeah, and I like the we have a bunch of general stuff too. I do enjoy that. Like on this ability, I get a shield
Some
or
are
a
important,
heal.
I think, for sure.
But then like having the more like the
Base
mid-walk-
HPs.
Yeah, like base HP is pretty standard. Like it's a standard on all front. We're just like we're
Yeah.
not going to touch those cards. People like them. It's an opt-in. They're getting just a little bit tankier. And then I think Moonwalk and Skywalker specifically, where we're like those are the things that I like to have in now for champs. Like just one extra little thing, one little fun thing that maybe.
And that's sick because those cards are really fun, and everyone immediately took to those.
Yeah.
Could I just say, why did you take out the backflip strength card? I used that in playtests, and you could literally cross Frog Isle in like 2 seconds.
Oh yeah, well that's why.
It's so much
that's
fun.
Basically, it was like I wanted to keep Skywalker, and
Yeah.
I couldn't do it with the jump strength because it was too abusable.
Yeah, it was like, do you want Wormjix?
That's really it. It was just like the
Could you just
combination.
On crack, yeah.
You're rolling out on Fishmark. You're like, look, honey, a shooting star as the Io just flies.
As someone who used it in playtest, I did it exclusively knowing that I get the benefit of being a dev to play with this.
Did you
And
did you
can't
use it?
release
Did you use it with sacrifice?
Um,
Just put your wolf down in
I
your
did
own
I did not
squad.
actually do that. We do have
Okay.
one player who runs sacrifice.
I don't. With
all the
Sacrifice
time.
wasn't. I don't think at the time that card was.
No,
It was broken for
there.
a while.
It was a little bit
So I don't
late.
think Sacrifice was functioning.
I remember doing it in playtest, and I think the only card that functioned was Lifelink. Was
Yeah,
the
that sounds-
Io
Yeah.
Fox heal.
I mean, that was the like what Kevin was saying about development pipeline is like.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the stuff is especially early on is theory crafting, and then has to get implemented. And
Yeah.
sometimes implementing these kinds of things, especially like the more complex they are, like Sacrifice is one of the most complex talents we have in the entire.
In terms of coding and
Yeah.
stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of what it does, even
That's true.
without from a coding perspective,
Yeah.
just like if you break down what it does
Mechanically,
it- like you're just like, okay, so you have your deployable that already is one of the most complex, one of the more complex things
Yeah.
we have in the game.
Thank you, by the way, for not launching that with a patch that made Ying Illusions cap or something. Like,
Oh,
could
yeah.
you imagine? That's what I was. My biggest worry was like, Io's gonna come out, Barrack's gonna be capping with his goddamn turret, and everything.
That would have been.
that was
specifically tested for that.
Thank you.
Yes.
we were like, we don't want this.
Yeah.
it was code put onto Luna herself, not like a general like she's a
Deployable thing.
pet.
Mhm.
She's
Yeah.
considered a pet.
She's considered a pet.
Yeah.
Underneath the hood.
Yeah. But yeah, so like with Sacrifice, like just the amount of like attention that needs to go with Luna already being as complex as she is, the amount of extra work that needs to be done, sometimes that comes in a little bit later. And so I guess technically Sacrifice didn't get as much like playtest time necessarily as Lifelink,
Yeah.
but the base kit overall of IO still
Yeah.
got like the same amount.
Yeah, and obviously, when it comes to development pipeline, right? Like Sacrifice, I think did that come later? Do you recall?
I remember it
As a talent?
being there in the playtests, but I
think
remember
we
it not being
were-
playable.
I believe Sacrifice was concepted for a while, but it wasn't fully.
Yeah.
It wasn't 100% fleshed out until a little bit later down the pipeline.
Yeah, mostly the focus primarily is like get the champion's base kit in, and then work on the talents, and then cards in that order. Any cards that need like programming support. A lot of the stuff that are technically already cards, like don't need any new programming at all. So
Right.
it's very
So, like,
Base health
if
card.
they're like it takes me an hour to set up all the cards.
base health cards,
that.
all that.
Yeah.
Like those are like some of the
Yes.
easier ones.
So
to
like, what if you used Swift? I don't remember the name of this card.
Swift
Swift
Arrows?
Arrows. Just like, do you just like take the code from like Speed Spirits and like kind of not the
Um,
code specifically, but like whatever
yeah, it's less
logic
code and it's
gives
more
you
like
that?
we have a tool essentially
Mhm.
that is linking to a lot of things, and I'm building. I guess the best way is like I have a bunch of building blocks that programmers created, and I'm mashing them
Mhm.
together and assigning them and pointing them to different things and
Yeah.
having them trigger off different things. So for the most part, though, like I have like a lot of our effects memorized.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I just like, oh, cool. I want to create a new card in our web tool. And then I'm like, I already know like all the things that I need to hook up specifically, so it's easy and I don't have to go back and reference it.
Some of them do require a little more love than that. We had one of Rom's cards, the Abyssal Connections. I forget the exact name of it. Arcane Connections. It's one of those two. The name changed in dev at some point.
What does it
during
do?
the process, but it's shield on rev.
Oh.
So that.
Oh
card-
no! What happened with that?
So that card used to proc anytime you did not have a shield active and your gun was revved up at least 1%.
That's
So we had one of our
that must have been rough.
one of our teammates was playing a bot match. He's like, I'm unkillable. Like I'm straight unkillable. And I'm just watching him. His health's like 8,500, 8,500,
shields.
9,000, 8,500, 9,000, 9,000, 9,000. And it just like keeps going back up. I'm like, holy shit! Like you're not like just basically unkillable. You're like actually unkillable. Like so like
obviously there's a notion of always test the things that
Yeah,
you're
obviously.
implementing.
Yeah.
Obviously. Sometimes, there's a lot going on and I just want to
Yeah.
whip up the card real fast because I've done it 100 times and you forget to put a lifetime on it and then it just is forever.
Is there any other good like stories of that? Any other cards that just were like, you're like, this should work, and then it just
It's not super infrequent. More so when it gets to like play testing, we're pretty good about it. But
Of
that
course.
card specifically was like I just didn't test
you're
it.
just like,
I
oh,
mean,
yeah.
I'm just like I just made it.
I'm just glad it was in a
and
bot
I'm
game and
glad-
not
yeah.
in a play test where they're
Yes.
just.
That'd have been
well,
hilarious
it's
in a play
like
test.
a lot of the a lot of early on play tests. This was like before all the cards had been implemented. So a
Yeah.
lot of the early on play tests had been just the default loadout, and this was like when the rest of the cards had just started coming in. So they hadn't really been play tested yet, and sometimes you get some stuff that feels OP, and you just kind of go like, yeah, we'll fix that.
How
and
many
we'll fix it.
how many talents tend to get workshopped for a champion? Like if we're talking about developing a champion, like obviously these are the 3 talents from that we've landed on, but like what was the? Are there any others in contention? Like what is the average like?
I think there's a lot more discussion and on paper than right
Than actually implementing something?
Yeah, punting is rare, I would say, for a talent. Once we start, especially if we start programming work on it. There's
Right.
also a notion of like, there's a lot of things that we can prototype at a base level that we'll just throw in for a match, or just like I'll play locally at my desk and be like, no, that doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll already be like, this probably won't work, but let me try it anyway. But generally, if it's like something new and it takes code, like Sacrifice was like, we're committed to this. We think this is
Yeah.
super fun and unique. And we already knew it was going to remain once it went in.
It's also distinctly like an IO only thing. Like
Yes.
no one else could possibly, unless you do like a Ying illusion thing, but
Yeah,
no one else
yeah.
reasonably would have anything that would work like that.
Yeah, we have had in the last one of the I don't remember exactly, but one of the champions in the last year and a half or so did have a talent kind of like reworked at the last minute. I don't remember exactly what it was.
Could it have been
Maybe
Dredge?
I think it might have been Dredge. Had like a talent rework towards the end. It might have been Freebooter, maybe. I don't remember exactly.
Well,
but, like,
Freebooter got like
Do we have 4 talents?
We
with
had
Dredge?
4
that was
talents
4
with
then.
Dredge, yeah.
It was Scuttle, Hurl.
And I know that like some of that
With a
kind of
spike
stuff,
and
some of
freebooter.
that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, like once you see like people playing with it, obviously you get a general feel of how
How it's gonna-
players will
yeah.
get to use it, because I mean, we only have so many
So
people,
many people
on the
looking
team.
at it, thinking
It's-
about it.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. The numbers, it's like the amount of dev time that the entire dev team takes on a patch, compared to the amount of hours that players play like the first day of the patch.
Yeah.
Like those numbers don't compare. Like like you get into PTS and like you see so many more.
Wait, you actually got
people-
into PTS? No.
We did have issues with that. And,
I'm well aware.
and it took some hard fought look at a lot of our back end, but we figured it out.
It wasn't. It was a Steam issue at a certain point, right?
Yes.
Really?
But yeah, so like you just have like so many like because like players are just playing the new thing, like you have so many more hours of players playing the new thing compared to what we're able to do in like a past cycle pretty quickly. So like watching players what they do when something gets released or even released to PTS gives you a more full picture compared to what we do during our playtest cycles.
It's also I obviously won't say any names here, but it is very common for a lot of AAA boxed titles to have essentially sweatshops of QA people. I know people have worked there and they're just like, it's absolutely
No, it's
horrible.
been.
Where
I
just,
think that like we've
hundreds
had
of
articles
QA
about
people, super underpaid in terrible working conditions. But it's just the raw number. It's just like opening to a PTS, where it's just like sometimes you just need the bodies because it's not possible to go through every single interaction between every single champion and every single ability at each level of the cards and each level of the talents. And obviously, like, we hit all the big stuff, but there's super edge case stuff that sometimes slips through.
Yeah, I mean that's how bugs work too, right? It's like we hit a lot of the major ones. Like when a bug goes live to like the actual live client, obviously it's something that got missed, but the number of things that never made it to live client, like
yes,
It's probably a big
I
pile
have
of
things
just
that
bugs.
the number of things that never make it to PTS even, like
Yes. Yeah, like what you get is like you're not even seeing all the stuff that QA already got. Hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of like issues.
And like QA can't possibly test every single character with every single skin on every single map.
Against
on the
every
final,
single
like,
link.
When a tiny hotfix, maybe a hotfix comes out and you can't test it every single like daily hotfix.
I will say overall it's been getting better though.
Yeah, sure. I think that has to do with the patch cycle, right?
Yes,
Yes,
and that's
for
been the
sure,
biggest. Again, more time for us to do a lot of the deeper interactions, and more time for just issues to surface because we're getting more playtests before the patch actually goes out.
I saw a question that I want to address just because I can't answer it. But it's Diet Beat These. What was the trickiest thing to code ever? I can't. Neither of us technically can answer that.
I already know.
Oh, well, you could. I mean, Q&A is at the end, but you could drop it now if you want.
Actually, never mind.
What?
I know the things that cause us the most problems, not the trickiest things to code.
Yeah.
Terminus alt.
Yeah, I could imagine Terminus alt being
So
up there.
there's a lot under the hood.
There was
about
there was
why
actually there was
so many issues.
there was a Termi old bug that happened
Over a
in
year and a
PPL
half. Over a year and a half.
with
What
your
one?
team.
Yeah, the Icebinds one?
Yeah.
There's
Just recently.
yes.
I'm gonna take a
There's more bugs that we found out.
Oh,
No.
sorry.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a complete guess and say Atlas Rewind
Oh,
Really?
No, it was for the coding
for
thing.
the coding.
Oh yeah,
for
that's
the coding.
Yeah.
Atlas Amani are some of our most complex champions, and I think
Ooh,
like
money, yeah.
the Rewind.
Yeah.
Because the programmer who worked on that Massey worked on it for like weeks, just for that one ability.
like Atlas's personal rewind or the setback.
The both, right?
Both,
so
yeah.
it's, so it's
Okay,
actually
both
the tech
forms.
behind rewinding players in time, both enemies and allies,
And
server
keeping
validating that and like
The
basically
HP,
like constantly creating.
Resi.
Keying their locations.
I can turn it
essentially,
on more.
For those that are familiar with like video editing, that's super like keying their locations in world and processing all of that and making sure it wasn't expensive, right? Because obviously, like if now all of a sudden my client is like processing every half second like a tick to key something, and I've got to keep track of that. Like that can be really expensive.
Isn't that also partially what's causing the Shaolin FPS bug too? That it
Shaolin-
was
I think that's a
like
little
the server like checking about it being fully charged or like the client or something like that.
It was actually and I think we've
done work on it.
I don't know if we fixed it. I don't want to say we fixed it, but I know one of our programs put a lot of work and figured out what one of the issues was.
Yeah.
And it was actually the VFX essentially,
On the
and
bow?
how it the little sparklies that pop on his the
like
When it max charges.
stun arrow?
It's like
it's like the
string,
arm of the
the
bow. Why
string.
can't
it's
I
like
think
little
of it?
sparks.
string, yeah.
It's like little sparks that happen like at max charge.
And essentially,
like, as you're getting
translucency
that.
is really expensive to render.
Yeah.
For graphics cards, and so basically it's like trying to constantly like it's essentially like double or triple rendering, like because you have to go. I'm trying to remember the exact. I'm not even going to get into it. I want to. I'm going to say something wrong. I'm like, I think I know what it is, but I don't want to say the wrong thing.
There's a lot.
Translucent VFX are expensive.
Yeah.
And that's just a thing across all video cards and how they process things.
Yeah. So speaking about the that actually is it's actually, I wanted to mention this before. It's kind of crazy that the champion pipeline, like the timing it takes, is literally from the one champion release to the other. Like it takes exactly that amount of time because we have 4 months generally right now between champions. Because we have the champion patch and then a 2-month break, and then
it's normally, and it's important to note that like different teams work on different parts, and then it's like I'll take animation for example because animation is some of the most like costly stuff for characters.
Costly as in like
time cost. It just takes a long time to animate.
Yeah,
things.
Of course.
Especially when you have 3P, 1P, and a bunch of different. There's a lot of things to it. And so typically they'll have like a couple people on skins / other things, and then they'll have like 2 or 3 people specifically on a champ, and they're normally just like they like flip flop. So it's like when a champ's done, the other
do the
half
other roll.
start rolling on to the next champion.
Okay.
And then we have tech art that's basically always present throughout the whole team too, and then prog starts on everything first generally, but we've been much better about getting character models in a lot earlier because that is the first step. Like get the model in, okay, then rig it, then animate it. And meanwhile, programming is working on the devices or the abilities basically at the same time, normally after or during modeling.
Okay. What about that's the champion pack. How long does it take like a map or a mode? Generally.
Maps, I could imagine.
So I haven't actually been personally a part of because I joined Paladin's team 2 years ago, and that
We
was
both
just
joined in January
as
last year.
the Asiatic map came out, Ascension Peak, and
Yeah.
then Bazaar. I wasn't working on Bazaar. What was I doing? I think I was working on IO. Well,
You were
Bazaar was
working on
going
IO for the most part during that, because
Yeah.
that was around the same.
We've had a couple releases recently.
We had
we've
Warders.
had Shatters, we've had Warders.
We did have Warders, yeah.
Warders.
I just personally
Ascension.
haven't been a part of the huge process.
Based
but
on, I mean, so I mean, you guys have seen how like most, if not all, of those maps in the test map queue.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
they go through several iterations, and it takes like several months. Like you start.
it is many months.
It's like
just as much, if not.
I would
it's
say
more than a champion.
I would say just as much, if not more, because not only do you have to like build a layout for the map that feels good to like play on, and like
Then
has
you
this
iterate
unique
beyond
dynamic.
that and balance for all the champions.
Right, but then not only that, then you have to also like plan the art cycle. Like so now we have here's this bunch of blocks, these gray and white blocks all over. What theme do like you have to concept like lore and themes and all this other kind of stuff. So it kind of goes hand in hand. Like design, like level design has to go hand in hand with the art team, basically throughout the entire process. Sometimes you change things in level design because it thematically works better for like the environment team, and so yeah, there's just a lot of back and forth between those teams, especially when it comes to levels. As for game modes, it really just depends on the complexity of the game mode. I know last year we put things like Flag Ball. Dragon's Call, I guess, is a Flag Ball.
I think most people would have gotten Flag Ball.
Yeah, but Flag Ball was our dev name for it. But for Dragon's Call, I mean, that one took like 2 months or so.
It wasn't too crazy.
Yeah,
There's actually a lot more.
There's a lot of prog work that goes into game modes.
Where most game modes don't actually require prog work outside of like needing to trigger certain things that LD just they probably just don't have the tools to do a lot of times. But Dragon Arena was like trying to replicate a ball on a server and have people catching it and picking it up, and it runs into a number of issues, and that was a lot.
Yeah, because it was a brand
long
new
process
thing.
to get the ball where it was when we launched.
Well, then Siege of Ascension Peak had the meteors.
Oh, those were
Like
nice.
those.
Those were annoying too, by the way.
Yes.
It is.
They were worse when you couldn't see them. you
Sure
just
couldn't
like
see them.
randomly got knocked up off the map for 1,000 damage.
Some people weren't rendering them.
playtest. Early on in the playtest, we just had the hitboxes in, and like you could see when they splatted on the ground, but like you couldn't see them falling. So you're just like
You just randomly get hit by it.
The playtest, like the first playtest of Siege of Ascension Peak, was basically like, good luck.
Godspeed. There was originally. I don't. Am I making this up? I remember hearing that there was going to be the concept was that we have a map in each mode for each theme, right? Originally, was that a potential like idea we were aiming for? with like there was because like what's the name of that map? Foreman's Rise was the Onslaught version of Splitstone.
Oh, that was like, if that was a thing that was like years ago, that was an idea and identity, and it's not anything that we're like currently committed to.
Yeah. I was just curious because I was like, man, how the hell are they going to do the Abyss design in Siege? I was like,
we did talk about doing an Abyss Siege.
The thing is, I think it would have to be bright.
I think Warders originally was going to be Abyss themed, and then we went with.
I love the
Warder
Warder
instead.
concept.
The more Amani Warder.
The
theme.
asymmetric Warder concept, I think, works significantly.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite.
It's really cool.
That was one of my favorite maps. Just watching visually like grow, like its process of like getting arted. I think like the dynamic of it being asymmetrical artistically is gorgeous, and I think it just has like I like the wind dynamic around the crystals is just like was just really fun to watch like get working, like watching Prague like get that in and like have it feel good. Like
I was just sorry, I was laughing because I was remembering a story that Bunny told about the crystal with Cuss. So apparently, if you Furia ult in the wind in the crystal, you just like get sucked straight down.
He found that out during a PPL match.
He ulted in the crystal during a PPL match and just slurped down into the abyss.
We can check that one out.
First I've heard of it.
Yeah, at Strix. I forgot to mention it because it was just like it was just a meme on
not
interaction.
Reporting, so you run into bugs, then you don't.
I was
report
telling
them,
people about
and
it.
then you come on.
You
your
have
show
a
and complain
Discord.
about them?
You have a Discord specifically to report bugs just for PPL players.
What is this?
I've done it.
That is an accurate statement.
Actually, I could ask you. Speaking of like bug reporting, what is like the ideal? Like, what would? Is it just like what it is and how to repro it? Is that like all you really need? Like the ideal report for something?
Shout outs to Nick in the chat for confirming to use the Discord, by the way.
Thank you, Avi.
And shout outs to Rhino for using it, because I know Rhino uses it. I talk with Rhino a good amount in the Discord.
I was the only player from my team who did it, but
yeah,
I don't know if anyone from our team uses it.
But yeah, so he's lying. I mean, essentially, like, at bare bones, like a brief description of the issue, potential repro steps, are always important. The more information you can add is always better, right? Like when we write tickets for bugs and stuff, we'll have like version of the game that we found it in, actual build number. These are things like players don't necessarily need to go into, but like when you go into like you can do like, here's what happened, here's what led up to it, here's a quick video of that kind of stuff.
I think here's what led up to it, right? If you don't know the repro, like I don't know how I did
say,
this. Like
this
I was
happened.
doing this and I pressed these buttons on this part of this map, and that gives QA like an immediate jump
10 times
start
easier job. Yeah.
to like try and repro it on their end.
yeah.
I personally, for me, I know it is different for everybody, but personally for me, having a video really does, because
You can
I
check
get
the
to
other
see-
factors.
I get to literally see what happened leading up to it. Man,
Man, that must
I
have been
can
fun
al-
for Vine
I
Crash.
can almost
Wow,
just
the Grover
take
Vine. I guess.
I mean, there's some bug fixes where we'll just like we see there's the issue, and then like we'll sit there and analyze it and like replay a video in slow mo for like 15 times to go like that's like what we think happened, right? And it helps leads to it. Programmers are really good at that too. They're actually like, because they know a lot of times, and I do too on some things. Like they know what's going on under the hood as these interactions are happening. They're like, oh, maybe something got canceled out here and stopped working that wasn't supposed to.
One of the most recent things that I think, at least personally, watching a video in slow-mo to like pay attention to an interaction, actually esports related, patch 7, we had put in a fix for most of the cases where spectator, like the case where if red team captured the point, it showed blue team.
Oh, it's still
capturing
happening.
it.
It's still
Well,
happening, man.
So it is.
I know. We know
It
why.
is.
Because
And
of
now
the,
we
it's
know
the blue
why.
team. It's when the blue team gets.
Triggers overtime.
Yes.
And then the red team captures. So it was literally
Oh,
like the 1% of
what?
scenarios. So
But the
that's
worst
why it
part
doesn't
is that's
happen.
the only time that you like need to see it.
Which is why it was frustrating because I got a message from Avi in chat, was like, hey, this got seen again, and like I went and saw it happen, and I was like, well, shit. And then like it literally didn't happen again for like 2 weeks.
it happened all the
Yeah.
time.
Well, it happened all the time for a little bit. Then it got fixed.
No, I'm saying even
and
after
then
the fix, it was happening a lot. There was like a day where it didn't happen because that day was like rolls.
Yeah, well, like, and there was like a week where it was kind of
Yeah.
rolls.
I mean, just like we have to watch every game from start to finish here. Like as a caster, like we're just like on the couch when we're not on for minor league and we're in the back with
Yeah.
production on Premier
But yeah,
League. So
like a couple weeks ago, I was just like watching chat, and I was watching the stream.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there. I was like, huh. It flashed back to like the previous times, and I was like, wait a second. Is this gonna happen here? Is the bug gonna happen here? Because I watched like double overtime
team,
trigger,
yeah.
and it did, and I like that's the kind of thing that you're just like. I mean, it's kind of rough that like sometimes it does take that take extra time because
Yeah.
you can't
Yeah.
just get the repro immediately every single time. Like it kind of like things sometimes just take longer to figure out, but it does feel good once you like can confirm like this is what it was. We did it. We got this.
this is a question that I think is going to lead into the next topic, but we're starting. The new seasons are starting at the beginning of every year, right? Like the new season, right? So that would mean that if we're staying on the 2-month patch cycle, the next season would start in the next patch after the Damned Frontier.
Correct.
Okay,
Sounds about right.
just checking that because we were gonna talk like balance and different stuff like that, and I figured like with that coming up, it might be like talking about. I obviously don't say like, hey, give us all the viewpoints of that because I'm sure there's a lot of shit that isn't finalized, right? Like leading into that.
We've done a lot, but we haven't got into. We're still working on some Damned Frontier stuff.
Yeah, of course.
QA is, so we haven't
Yeah.
been doing anything testing for
Yeah.
patch 1.
Meta. If I missed it, I'll check it out. By the way, apologies.
Bunny, how you lose to Os Rhino? Laughing, crying face.
Wow.
I
won one.
I just
That's all
wanted
I
to point
gotta
out you
say.
getting
I
shit
won
on.
one.
But yeah, I mean,
One.
Like what Kevin was saying, our main focus still has been making sure
Damned Frontier is-
Damned Frontier
Yeah.
goes out clean.
Of course.
We've run into a couple of snafus on the
I mean,
QA
it's
side.
the patch that's coming out right before Worlds, right? It's not the Worlds patch, but it's still like, you know, people are going to have their eyes on the game. People are going to want to try it out, and having a patch that is functional and all that is really important.
And I think last patch, we really hit like a good stride when it comes to that as well. Like that was, I mean, obviously it wasn't perfect, and you know that means that there's always things to improve on from like everybody's side. But it was one of the patches that went out, and we were like, okay, like this is how like this is how like look back at this process and like continue to do more of this because this felt good. It wasn't perfect, and we can still iterate on the process, but it's kind of like do more of this kind of thing.
By the way, speaking of Damned Frontier, thank you for fixing the champ select screen because it is so much better in
It was
Oh,
by Kevin personally.
I meant like
What happened?
yeah.
No, shout out to
General.
our Eric Rice, our UI guy, who we did a pass at it.
Yeah, it is significantly better now.
I am a fan of the new one. We're all a fan of the new one too. Don't.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. No, it like giving everybody different options. Like some people just are the level 56 Victor, and they only want to click him in the top right corner, and that's the only thing that they need to care about. And like if you're sorting by mastery level, that's the only thing that you care about. It's just top left every time. But
And you can sort it by different ways too.
Yeah,
like-
you can sort it by name, you can sort it by ownership, and then by mastery level. Like there's so many different ways you can do it. It just like gives you something for everybody. Maybe you just want to look at just the flanks, especially as a new player. You can be like, okay, these are the flanks. These are the characters that I want to look at to learn this class, and it makes it just a little bit easier for everybody to do basically everything that I want to do.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that really quick. But the leading question I had earlier about whether next patch is the next season, I think, well, after Den Frontier is the next season, kind of leads into the topic I have about just like the full. What you're leaning in?
I was
He's
speeding
getting
up
up.
to-
He's getting
the mic.
ready.
It's the
I was trying to lean back and
Kresnik's
be super.
topic. Casual.
It's hard to talk on the mic like that though.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about the ideals for like what your philosophy is currently for like how you want the classes and the roles to come.
Okay.
Class, that's my TF2. Speaking to me, that's my pass there.
Class role, it's all.
Yeah, it's all. You can say
There's
that.
synonyms
Symbols.
for in games.
I'm just glad I stopped saying
Champion,
classes.
heroes.
Like, my favorite class is Sky. Like,
Yeah, I legitimately call our characters gods sometimes because I played Smite for 3.5 years.
is that what they're called? That's what they're called, like in engine, though, isn't it? Because
really?
it's like, isn't it like the Smite engine, like
I mean, if
repurposed?
potentially, if they like, if the whole like
There might be some
there
references.
might
Yeah.
be, yeah,
but-
like with like how like back end stuff. Like
Yeah,
worked,
it's
but-
there's some back end references to gods.
Yeah.
Because Paladins was built.
On the Smite engine.
Yeah, at the base of Smite.
Yeah, but I wanted to talk about philosophy for like what you want the roles to be doing in general, and also I want to talk about ideals for talent design was something I wanted to mention
Okay.
because I know we've kind of talked about the talents, like some talents that give different play styles to champions are really good, but some are kind of just like stat boosts in different areas, and like if you is a stat there's some questions you can raise there, like is a stat boost good for a talent if that boost is enough to give an alternative playstyle, right? Like if you look at a talent like Pluck or something versus a talent like Half Shell, I think that's a good comparison to draw because Half Shell is very clearly a unique playstyle from Makoa, but Pluck is kind of just
More
hook,
big
hook
damage.
better.
It just reinforces his primary gameplay
Yeah.
loop.
Mm.
It's just about making like what the standard Makoa, what they should be doing. They're just now more effective at it.
But like moving forward in terms of talents, I think Io has a pretty cool spread because she has that one very unique talent. She has Sacrifice that kind of flexes things, and she's obviously primarily a healer. But she doesn't have damage where she doesn't really need that damage talent, right? So if she has that Goddess Blessing for that pocket style, she has Lifelink for that spreading heal style, and I think that's a good zone to be in general. Is that what you think an ideal would be for you? In
Yeah,
terms of
we
talent
definitely
design?
want to be. It gets a little bit messy sometimes, right? I'll say support. Like I think ideally you look at things and you go like, well, I want this to be the offensive one, I want this to be the defensive one, and this one to be the utility. Obviously, IOs. I want pocket heals versus I want more AOE spread heals.
Yeah.
And then versus I want self survivability.
Yeah.
But you can't always just apply that base idea to everything, because sometimes it's just. I'll take healers as a good example because it's like, well, I'm always going to pick the one that makes my heal better. In a lot of scenarios.
As long as you're playing it as like a
And
primary support.
that's one of the things that we ran into with Iowa a little bit. It's like I could make that talent like heal you 100%, and people will still not pick it because it doesn't increase their healing. It doesn't increase their value.
But then what happened? Then you run at risk of the more you buff it because it's not better than healing, and then some
Yeah,
of the
sometimes-
damage
and
Io
then
was
she-
God.
Sometimes it's just crossing a threshold, which we've seen a lot.
The best flank in the game, or one of them.
Yeah, like Catalyst Pip. I mean, Catalyst was kind of after that like Mark buff came in initially. I think that's kind of one of the things that pushed him over for a bit. There was a while like once he had Moxie. He had
Yeah,
all
he
these,
has
I
a
remember,
little crazy.
I remember the Pip Genos earlier this year. Or it
Yeah.
was late last
Yep.
year too. Pip Genos late last year, early this year was just a really scary.
It's a lot of damage and a lot of healing and a lot of
Impossible to kill early game.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yep.
The amount of times I chased
and Pip just
Moxie
heals him
5
for
Pip,
1800. That's
or has a Genos pocket, and you could just never kill it as
Yep.
Ash.
Yep.
Yeah.
Plus with Luminary on him.
Yeah.
He three shots your back line, and yep. I mean, it's stuff like that like you want characters to have this dynamic. Like it is cool to have like kill your team Grok. It is like it's cool to have like Maldamba that can like snipe a little bit, or Grover that can snipe, but you do have to be like it's like not everybody has that. Like Furia doesn't really have like a I'm going to nuke you. Like Exterminate's kind of that, but not to the same degree necessarily like Catalyst is.
I don't know. I was gonna say even as a healer, I feel like I still as Damage Fury, I wouldn't take Exterminate. I think its stopping is actually worse in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
dependent. It offers a unique play style,
true.
which is big.
And that I think is really important.
Yeah, and I'll say, so offering a unique play style when it comes to actually like how your abilities are interacting is important for us. Having different styles of play or different emphasis to put in your kits. So I will say IO, right, the pocket heal, which we gave her like swift arrows to technically be able to amplify something like that. Something that's encouraging you to stick and keep on one player. And then I need to spread my healing, and so those offer different ways. And I would say like IO is definitely an ideal for
support,
for a philosophy. Just as a general, like, I am modifying the way I play. I may not be completely changing my gameplay loop, but I'm getting better at one distinct thing, and there are reasons to do that depending on my team or the enemy team. And so it's not necessarily always I want to play completely differently. It's like, can I find moments where this is better than the other thing based on who I'm playing or who my teammates are playing and who the
You're
opponent,
playing against, yeah.
I'm playing against.
I think Ash is another like really good one that's like really balanced.
Those
all
are three perfectly very different
play styles.
yeah.
They're all valuable. They all have unique cards to make that talent better.
Yeah, Ash is one. I mean, even maybe not necessarily in pro matches and like higher level ranked, but at like your mid level ranked, like Maldamba, like just has 3 talents that are fun. and like not. I mean, they're not as good at mending spirits.
I think Stun Damba is actually sick in terms of like
Stun
what it
Damba
does.
has always been viable.
Undervalued, for
that's
sure.
literally any game.
there
CC
was
is
a meta.
super strong when used correctly, and CC on somewhat demand outside of a 4-second internal cooldown. That's a little bit harder to aim. Like you can just set up and secure a lot of kills with it.
I mean, like I'll leak a little bit, not Paladins, like pro meta related by the way, before you guys say anything. There was like a meta where Stun Damba was like legit.
Yeah,
like that's not even a joke. Like it never saw the light of day because it was in that area between the last
pre-PPL,
worlds
right?
and pre-PPL.
Yeah.
There was like legit teams were running Stun Damba and he was owning games.
I think we were one of the first few teams to start doing that a lot. At least in NA, we were doing that a lot. It was so good, and like you didn't need the extra healing because Damba already had a crap ton
Dharma
of
had
healing.
great healing, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I wanted to ask about in terms of supports. I feel like some of the supports that have damage talents have another talent that almost kind of makes it moot.
Okay, give me someone to.
I
break
think
down for you.
Ying, if you're playing her as a DPS, you'd almost always want to run focusing lens. I think Resonant, like in terms of like, are there talents that you think are just being overshadowed significantly?
We had a discussion about this today.
Today, okay.
Oh, I heard. Yep.
So there are because we. For the new season, we're definitely going to have a couple talent changes.
I was actually going to ask about that too.
Resonance was one we were looking at that we felt like doesn't really do
Offer
enough
much,
numbers-wise, and it directly competes with Focusing Lens.
Yeah, and focusing lens lets you keep healing your team too.
Yes, but there are a number of people who play that, and it's fun for them.
Yeah.
Bombs Away Ying is what people call it, or what people have called it. And there are, when I look at the breakdown in game of like how many players are actually utilizing this talent, it's a large amount. And so it's like, even if I personally think it's competing and that we can do a better job with the talent, it's hard for me to justify those players that enjoy that play style, whether it be meta or not, taking that away from them, which is something we ran into with the removal of 4 talents. Like everyone lost. Like
I did lose retaliation.
Every single there is at least one person out there that, regardless of whether it was the best talent to remove or
the
not,
worst talent,
is really mad that we removed it. And that's always something that we have to like. Anytime you remove something, there's always that one person. It's typically
How do you
thousands.
think
It's typically
this?
thousands of them, not just one.
Yeah, shout out to you Dragonfire Lance players out there, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, that card
all
was
one
so
of you.
fun. No, I actually ran that
VFX
card
hell.
in pubs.
It was awful. It was
It's
like
just
so,
another
Yeah.
emoji VFX in your face.
I remember
game,
being
so.
sad when Ambush got removed, and now I'm very happy that it got removed.
Oh,
because
if
imagine
Ambush was
Ambush
still
on
in,
current
dude.
Strix,
Oh.
dude.
And there's and I mentioned Moji, but like that's another thing, right? Because we talking about changing or removing things, we need to be like super confident internally that like this is for the betterment of the game. Because if we changed Moji to a support, right? Like I don't necessarily think we're gonna get a bunch of new players playing Moji support. But
you
we're gonna
might
piss off
lose
every single person who enjoyed damage Moji.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard to justify changing that. Just because we think it's better, or even if we're confident and know it's better, if there are a sizable numbers of players that enjoy it. And like that's kind of my thing. Like I'm okay with like, cool, this is just 3 distinct play styles. This is the meta for pro players and at elo above platinum plus. But the other two offer fun play styles and people enjoy them. Like I may buff their numbers to make them pro viable, but I'm not gonna change them.
Yeah.
This is a game for everyone.
Yeah,
of course.
Ideally.
Yeah, I mean, like there's gonna have those top tier talents. And like damaging, I'm not saying that I expect to see damaging in pro play because I've seen it in pro console play, but not really pro
for sure.
pro PC play.
Put out some damage though.
Yeah, but it's like I feel like I mentioned Resonance because I know a lot of people pick it, and I wanted to mention it as like it's getting overshadowed, but it is still fun and it provides something unique, right?
And I used to play it, right? And I was still ready to change it, but when I'm breaking down the numbers, right, like we typically start with like, what are the lowest play rate talents, agnostic of win rate?
Right.
It's like, oh, this is a 1% talent. Like, is it just needs a buff because it's that bad, or is it just like
An unfun skill.
unfun thing that just like the other things are better?
Or is it being like in the case of, I mean, there have been several talents over the course of Paladin's lifetime where one is just overshadowed the other two to such an extent.
Yes.
Like Old Scorch.
Old Scorch definitely was old. What was the Saris talent that we incorporated into base kit?
Void of
The
Minds.
Void of
AoE.
Minds.
That's just a fun talent.
Yeah.
Later,
And the thing is,
more
Mortal
distinct and
Reach
unique.
was actually still better at pro play, but it was
Sure.
in ranked and stuff. You want to be able to heal your other teammates because
Yeah.
3 of them at least are going to be spamming VHS.
Pro
want
play
something.
is always its own world.
Yeah,
and
of course.
And I recognize that.
Yeah.
Their picks and bans very rarely will directly line up with even the top of ranked. And so it's always important. Like I do look at pro play, mostly at like who's getting picked, what's getting picked.
Why is it getting
less so what's winning? I find it not as important because
There's
it's such a
variation.
small
Yeah.
players,
Also-
and then there's like specialists.
There's also right now the fact that Barrack has like a 60% win rate in PPL, but I feel like that's almost because the second pick team is the one that usually gets Barrack, and they're
Yeah.
usually the one that's winning the set.
Barrack is also one of the best champs in the game right now.
That is very true.
Yeah.
He
Just
is
in general,
if you know how to
statistically.
play him. And it's like, so like lower level players that aren't running failsafe, bowling ball, healing station, they're not getting the same results, are they?
Funny. So Barrack operates in a unique world because he is both a character that can dominate in casuals and in pro play when
Yes.
with a very specific, right? The
Like
bowl-
the
the
build.
bowling ball shield,
The
reset,
Barrack
Yeah.
build.
which is just like that. You just get so tanky and become very hard to lock down.
Can't get bursted.
But turrets. So this is a little bit about IO too. Like in general, you'll notice any turret champion or anything that creates things that are agnostic, that just deal damage to other players. Like naturally, they are really good against
Yeah.
people. And it's
They just don't know what's going on.
It's even if it's minor, it's just like
It adds up.
it adds up, and it's also means Barrack is like doesn't have to put out as much damage, and so it's like a safer baseline. It's like, cool, I'm a bad Barrack who doesn't place turrets, and I deal 20,000 damage. I'm a bad Barrack that places turrets, and now I've done 60,000, and that extra 40,000 damage of pressure.
It wins a game.
It wins a game,
For sure.
Especially when you're looking at win rates and you're talking about like hundreds of thousands or millions of matches.
I did want to ask, do you think that, and this is something that we've kind of spitballed before, do you think that Barrack is difficult to balance potentially because, not just because of the turrets, but because his damage is so insane with Tinkerin, and that being like this talent that everyone's running?
Oh yeah, it's game.
That's
What we said at some
Unlucky.
point was Tinkerin is so good potentially, but it also adds like a dynamic to his play that not a lot of other tanks have.
Yeah.
Could it be potentially rolled into the base kit, or do people care about the shotgun that much?
I think just tinkering so good that people forgot that his base shotgun is a thing. That's
Yeah,
on-
that
like,
probably
you don't
has
even
happened.
know. We actually buffed the base shotgun and it's better than it was before. I'm not saying it's the best weapon ever, but like you're just like, nah, it's tinkering.
Yeah.
You're a fat Cassie.
Yeah, that's one of the things, right? The problem would be like with Tinkerin nerfed Barrack. If it does the same damage as the shotgun, then I guess it's just like, oh, you're just upping his range. But when you're running shotgun, the reason why the players at the top are always running Tinkerin is because there's an answer.
It's also just
There's-
higher.
yeah.
It's literally higher,
Higher
DPS.
damage. Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's around a single pellet, right?
Yeah.
Which pro players are
Are
essentially
hitting those pellets.
like 90% of the time.
yeah.
But it's also interesting when you look at like the difference between pro play. Like Tinkerin's the only thing you see at pro play, but you start looking at like casuals, and I know it's partially because it's the base talent and like
Architectonics,
but
yeah.
Architectonics has like an obscenely high play rate compared to like a lot of other not
The,
pro
like,
play
sweaty talents, yeah.
like Tinkerin is the pro play talent, but Architectonics
And the high elo talent too,
It's-
right?
yeah.
I would say, right, pro players don't play Barrack like his core design is. When
He's
it comes,
played like a fat Cassie.
he's
Like,
played
a burst sustain point tank.
it's burst sustain, yes.
Yeah.
Burst sustain and burst damage.
and he's meant to be locking down an area, not necessarily trading with you while he holds it, right? Is that kind of what it comes down to? Because that's the biggest thing about Tinkerin is that if a pro, like Barrack versus Cassie, Barrack has a shotgun, Barrack loses 100% of the time because Cassie just ranges him. Barrack with Tinkerin versus a Cassie, Barrack has a chance to win that because he can actually trade. And I think that's what it is. I think removing or nerfing Tinkerin might bring that, like, it's going to drop him straight down. I don't even think it's going to bring Archie in because you could just avoid the bullets or shoot the turrets. Bulldozer counters it too.
I wish Architectonics was good. That card's so fun to
It
use.
is.
And the shotgun's
I do miss the hit scan, but I mean,
it's also interesting to see like the dynamic of like because we added bowling ball to base kit or to default loadout.
Yes.
You said base kit. I was like,
I was like, what?
Oh god, no.
That'd be
To
scary.
his default loadout, because his default loadout was like literally only turret
Turrets.
cards.
Yep.
Until recently, and so we took away I think one of those and slotted in bowling ball, and it just like that also changes like a little bit more of the dynamic where like because you had for new players who weren't necessarily as interested in building decks, you had this build around that was just. Here's my loadout. It's got four turret cards. I'm just gonna play the turret talent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Anthony actually worked with me on redoing all the loadouts to be
Yes.
both more just generally. They're meant to be friendly to new players, right? They don't always match up with pro builds. Well, they also are all level 3, but which we are changing, by the way.
In the next season?
In the next season, yeah.
Okay.
It's gonna be a lot of work, but
you need help?
Yeah, if you need help, I can
No,
help out with the
I
tank
live here.
ones.
Oh, what is that face?
I'll throw you guys some stuff.
Yeah, sure.
I
live here.
Yeah, we're also gonna have 3 loadouts. So
It's not.
Wait,
it's not
does
gonna
that
reduce
mean
the
more
spaces,
loadouts
right?
in total?
there's 3 default loadouts. None of them are locked to level 3. Ideally, we're trying to create one around each talent. Not necessarily
That's
that'll
perfect.
always be a thing.
Yeah, that would be good.
But like that's kind of the high level goal is like, okay, if I'm going to pick the Architectonics, I want like here's the either 3 or 4 most important turret cards, and maybe something else.
Yeah.
There's something else you asked me that my brain just completely forgot about because I answered a second question.
Max number of loadout slots.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, you can now change all of your loadouts.
So you can
Including
get
the
rid of the
default.
3 defaults.
Yes, and so what's gonna
So
happen?
eight
is-
loadout slots.
6.
There's 6, so you
Okay.
can't delete your default 3.
But you can change
Deleting
But
it
you can
will
change it.
reset it to default.
Okay.
But you can change it and save it. But anytime you
Okay.
delete one of your 3 defaults, it'll just reset it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's sick. So so it's basically an extra loadout.
It's an extra loadout slot. Yeah, that's
is-
that's
yeah.
not the 3-3-3.
If I already have 5 builds on Barrack, and I load in, are my top 2 builds going to be reset?
Yes, we talked about that. It's just a thing for us. And how
Are
it is.
are the cards potentially changing that much where it's worth wiping the builds?
It's more so how we have to implement it code wise that we're going to have to we're basically going to set everyone's
Top 3 builds.
top 3 loadouts to
Okay.
be these specific.
Everybody
flags.
move your most important
Yeah.
builds to slots 4, 5, and 6.
Sorry.
I mean, hey, listen, knowing now is better. They can change it
for sure,
early.
for sure.
Yeah, so speaking of that, so we talked about like talent ideals, what we want to do, different play styles obviously is the goal, and I think achieved on most champions. I'm trying to think of what champions don't really have that. I mean, like the champs that are just like already so one dimensional in terms of what they do, not in a bad way, but they're specialized, aren't changing too much. Like Victor will always be shooting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's shooting, man.
Yeah, he's shooting, man, and it's cardio,
It's interesting.
shrapnel, burst mode. They all
I always find it funny that people like will like literally shit on Victor's design, but it's like Victor's design is literally perfect for what he is meant to be.
Yeah.
He's meant to be like, and that's part of Paladins, right? Is like, no matter what game you've played before, there's probably some character that you're like, oh, I know it. Like, I want to be an AOE healer, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're not going to see that in a Call of Duty, but you have a Ceres.
Yeah.
You'll see a Victor in a Call of Duty, right?
You can sprint.
I've got my
you have a
ADS.
nade.
N16, I've got my nade, I've got my kill streak. Basically, is all right, like calling down mortars.
Yeah.
So things like that, right? He is a perfect design for what he was intended to be.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's literally like he is literally called the shooter man. Like we joke about it in the office, but like that is literally like
People
is
still
there,
play him. People
he is
love
there
him.
to be.
Yeah, and
he's
he's
there to
good
be
in pro
the
play
shooter
too.
man.
And-
He's also just like fun. Like if
Yeah,
I want
he
to play,
is.
if I want to play a character that's just like I want to shoot you, rather than like if I want to play a character that's like I want to be mechanical, I'll go in and load in with like a Maldama or a Maeve
Andro.
or an Andro. But if I go in and I'm like I just want to shoot some people, I'll just like load in with a
played
Victor.
That's what I felt today in our playtest a few hours ago. I was like, man, I haven't played Victor in a while. Like, I don't want to think. I just want to
I just
shoot.
want to shoot people.
I'll be
Throw
honest.
some grenades.
I want to see my
Run a-
crosshair change colors and press the left mouse button. Like that's all I want to do in this game. game.
I may have run around the cart with cardio too.
Did you see that moment in the PCL where that? Oh my god!
Did he delay it? He just ran around the cart.
For
He
a
got
while.
4 overtime touches in front of the entire team in the console league with cardio. It was
The
it
man,
was
the myth,
rowdy
the
out
legend.
And lived the whole
Dude,
entire time too.
lived the
Didn't
entire
even
time.
die.
Got away.
love
He
the-
got
I
away.
love
Cardio
the-
is legendary.
Seeing those
Memed
on
on it for
Reddit-
so long.
Yeah, seeing those on Reddit is great. Seeing those in pro play is so much better because like it's. I mean, whether people like meme on it and shit on it or not, cardio is like viable. Like you
No,
can
it
do-
actually is. No, it's seeing pro play too.
Yeah.
Like in scrims and stuff in the past, it was absolutely
The-
seeing play.
The funniest part too is like cardio is really not like spectacular, like because you're keeping yourself alive,
But you're not
but you're
doing
also
anything.
not contributing at all.
Yeah.
During that time.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the downside of this is kind of a side thing, but that's also why Ceres doesn't see pro play either. Because when she's staying alive, she is doing nothing. And when she's healing, she's only healing. When she's only shooting. Like she can't multitask like a Damba can, or some other characters can't, but they bring more benefit too. Like Io is also giving you that DR. She gets dove. She can keep fighting and not get locked into that stealth and that stuff.
That makes sense.
That was definitely. I just wanted to mention that because we talked about that last
We were figuring
week
out,
when
like,
we had Spunky
what
and
could we
Sereni on.
possibly do,
We
yeah.
talked about like dual wield Ceres, like she can heal and shoot with one hand. We were like, would that be broken?
That would look so
That's
cool.
That's
too.
one of the things with I think with ROM's central design, right? With like you can't do everything at the same time, but like you can shoot and Q. You can
Yeah,
shoot
that you noticed that.
That actually
Yeah.
came in later too.
Yeah.
That wasn't originally designed. He was actually locking himself out. But
Yeah.
I
It-
think
we landed
getting
on
rid
the
of lockouts is always better. I think.
but it just makes it feel so.
What was that?
That's not inherently true. That's
Well, like for game feel is what I mean. Not like balance wise,
Oh,
but
yeah,
like in
yeah,
terms of
yeah.
game feel. Like when Atlas originally,
Yes.
when he put his shield down and he had
Oh,
to,
yeah.
he had to be like, I need to live.
Well,
Yeah.
it was
Okay, let's
also
go.
it was also the whole loop of being able to F as Atlas during the middle of your charge shot, like having it's essentially just giving you more options. You're allowed to do more things and like diversify what you're going to do. Like your general gameplay style is going to stay the same, but you're able to just do more things and have more options with that same gameplay style.
yeah. Generally, the trade-off is like the more powerful the ability, the longer
The lockout would
the lockout, or just like the more negative impact it has to be, like whether it be lockout or higher cooldown, or just like really powerful but in a small time, or not as powerful but can last a lot longer. And you see that a lot with different abilities. I think Atlas was like, we were too scared of what he was potentially able to do.
And
he's
this
still
is what
he's
he
very
came out
strong,
with?
right?
Oh my god!
It's like Atlas is terrible, and then it's like, okay, we'll remove the lockout from all. Atlas is the most broken thing I've ever
Yeah.
experienced. Obviously, he
would have just eventually. I think he would have.
They
eventually got
would have
there anyway.
people would have figured it out
Yeah.
eventually.
Yeah.
But it does feel better. But like that means sometimes you have to make things feel better, or to not have as much lockout or downtime. Like you kind of have to like lower the impact. There's a lot of like. And we a lot of times, like Rom, actually, I'm really happy with where he landed in the end. But for a long time, everything was a lot longer. His ultimate was a 1.5 second. Now it's 1.2.
Yeah.
And like people just like, cool, you're walking out of it. It did more damage then, but it just became
It was like a
when
dredge
it
thing.
when it happened, it was like a guaranteed kill, but it just like not having it hit very infrequently felt bad, right? Very similar to a problem I think we ran in with Kraken, where it's like, here's this super, 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 super powerful effect. But
legs
we have
counter.
to make it very easy to get out of, or like you have to set it up intentionally. And then it's like, cool, I use my ult and it's basically a zoning tool.
Yeah.
And it never gives me that satisfaction of like hitting people and knocking people up.
Satisfying ults is a really big deal too. Like I that's another part of the reason that stuck me with the game originally in the first place. Like Seismic Crash, for me, Seismic Crash felt better than Earth Shatter. I don't know. You didn't play a lot of main tank in Overwatch, but like hitting a fat shatter was like felt like an outplay a lot of the time. But when I'm just like hitting a good Seismic Crash. What? Yeah.
I asked who
sorry.
that. I
Who's
asked who
asking
that
who
was.
Yeah,
it
sorry.
was? That was.
I don't actually know most of the
Oh yeah.
characters.
It's like
in
hitting a
that
shatter
game.
felt like a skill thing for me, and I'm like, oh, that was cool. But like hitting a Seismic Crash in this game just like feels better. I don't know. Like the feel of the ultimate, the sound design and stuff, I think was part of
And
what
then
drew
you
me
can
in.
take you can take the balance from there then too, because like you can take something that feels good
Yeah.
and then kind of like tune it. It's like I see Spunky talking about Gen Assault. It's like you landed the damage. Like Gen Assault does feel good to hit. Like
Yep.
if you hit two people, like holy shit, you're just like yeah, I did it. But like you also have to make sure it doesn't like do too much.
That's something we like, right? I personally like the holy shit moments. Like, what in the kit is just like going to be a little bit crazy, but maybe not happen super often. But the second you hit it, you're just like, fuck yeah.
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 And like IO for me is like, I know there's a lot of issues with like it not interacting with walls. A lot of that is some tech limitations, but like when you ult like 4 people off a map, you're like, cool, the last 4 whiffed, but like that one
one
felt
was sick.
really
Yeah.
fun and exciting.
And that's also part of like Ultimate's not really like not always being the best thing to do, right? They have to whiff to make them not always the answer.
You also get to like use IO ult a little like
As a defensive
it has
tool.
more use. It has more
Yeah.
use on some maps. Like
Yeah.
you got like we had a play test. It was a couple weeks ago. It wasn't particularly recent, but someone IO ulted 2 tanks into the
Fidget spinner?
spinner on Splitstone.
I always
And-
position myself to ult people into that.
I
thing.
just watched that and I stopped and was like, that was good. That was really
That's one thing I do
good.
like is that we do have champions that excel on certain maps, and I love that notion. I remember like before we made Ash's ult stun, she was basically only played on Frog Isle.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was a
big
period,
one.
yeah.
For
She was also like almost bannable on Frog Isle in that time period too. It was like there was a point where like it was like that dynamic was you never saw her on Frog Isle, and then Frog Isle was like either first pick or like potentially banned material.
That was like right after like Slugshot, right? It was like Slugshot
After
OP,
Slugshot
then got
nerfs.
nerfed.
Yeah.
Then she was like Frog Isle only. Then
God,
got
that
the
card
ult
was
buff.
absurd when it did 5.
Oh.
Didn't it do 500?
It was 475.
Was it 475?
I think it was 475.
I think there was a time where it was 500. Was that with the Luminary
Oh,
boost?
it might have
I'm
been like
trying to remember.
520.
Old Slugshot just did more damage.
Was
it 550?
It was 550. I
Holy.
believe. I think it was.
Holy shit!
Oh.
That
I
sounds
blocked that out.
That
That's just a
sounds
blank
right.
space in my memory,
all,
dude.
all I remember is when I first came to this game, just running Slugshot Ash and just killing everyone. It didn't matter. You just shoot
Oh, is that
them
what made
3
you go?
times.
Is that what made you switch from soldier to?
Yes,
to
that
tank?
Ash was one of the main things. Ash with nibble and just run around and chase
And it hit
everyone.
around corners. Oh yeah, the hitbox was kind of out there. But
Yeah.
Anyway, back on specifically the topic that we have, because this is honestly the easiest group I think to go on a tangent with, because there's so much we can talk about. Woo! I totally just clipped the shit out of the mic. The philosophy for the roles and stuff in general.
Yeah.
And this can kind of be, I guess, almost a lead into you talking. You don't need to give anything up about the next season, obviously, but this will kind of almost be like what you think the designs will be next season. Your ideas for the roles and what you want them to be doing in the game. You're laughing, and that's worrying
Uh-oh.
We have a lot of balance coming
yeah.
to season 3.
Uh-oh.
me. Wasn't this season
That
3?
was kind of ominous the way I said it. I'm really excited for it. I'm actually very
I think it's going to be
happy.
good, and I think that it does lead into this kind of concept.
Yeah. So I will say before I get into roles, I think there is and I've had this thought for a while, and I've talked about it with a number of other designers, and we've kind of agreed. The interaction between items in our game and gameplay flow is not something we're happy with right now.
Okay.
Mostly in the fact that I'll take Fernando as just a super easy example, because I've always had it, and we graphed all this out too. Time to kill of shields, and my effectiveness and what my identity is as a frontline in our game. Level 1, most frontlines are like, why would I Sorry, I say level 1. Either no wrecker or like first round. I say level instead of round so much. Round 1, if like a lot of times you won't be even starting wrecker. Sometimes you will. Maybe you'll have one.
Yeah.
But like you throw up a shield and you're like, I'm not shooting that. It's like an 8-second time to kill. Like it will end before I actually break through it.
Reload like twice while trying to kill the shield.
You just like go through a clip and you can't kill it as an individual. Or like it's like, cool, we need 2 or 3 people to focus on this, and obviously that is not ideal in a team fighting scenario when like you have 3 people shooting a shield and not getting any benefit.
We know
so
how much
counter.
fun shooting shields is in hero shooters. Continue.
No one else deals with that,
Then
right?
you have record 3, and you're like,
useless, yeah.
you walk out and you're like, guess I don't have a shield anymore. This has
that
been
ability's a little useless.
I am now useless as a frontline. So similar to what we did with the resilience and wrecker and cauterized cards, where we remove them from
all loadouts.
and cards. Yeah. Yep. We want to make the flow better. So from there, we started with bringing all wrecker, shield health, and Bulldozer, and not Resilience, but we've brought down Wrecker and Bulldozer, and reduce all shields across the board and all deployable.
This
health
was a
across the
change you
board.
guys tested before, but it also came with Wrecker becoming frontline, just doing more damage to tanks, right? Way back.
Yeah, it might have been before my history in Paladins.
I think someone in chat might know, but I'm pretty sure
If
that
it's
was
beyond,
that was
like,
something
if it's, like,
previously.
2.5 years
there
plus.
was a change.
Yeah, that's
solid.
literally what he just asked.
There was a
so.
change that only hit PTS.
Yeah, it never went live. It never went
live.
Got it.
Of,
Okay.
Of Wrecker not dealing extra damage to shields, but dealing extra damage to front lines. And I think that was like either before I joined the team or short.
That
after.
didn't make it
So
live.
weird. What?
Yeah, I mean,
Wait,
it would have been
PTS not
aggression.
live.
Aggression. It was 10% per level, by the way. Yeah, that would have been But it's similar to that change in the sense the shields are going down, but so is the cards to counter.
Yes. So I'm not going to get into numbers right now because we literally haven't tested them.
Of course.
Because the focus has been on Damned Frontier. We've got some stuff ready to test, but we haven't really been able to get.
Honestly, I wasn't even expecting you to say anything about the next season. So this is pretty sick.
I've kind of.
You've already spoiled it, like some of the Wrecker stuff on.
Yeah,
Twitter
I'm not going to
already.
talk
And the
about
Ruckus stuff.
much specifics when it comes to
we
like.
might discuss the Ruckus at some point in the Q&A because people
Yeah,
will ask
we can
about
do that one
for
because I did
sure.
spoil that one. But I just wanted to give kind of like an overhead of like this is the philosophy going into next season. It's like we want to change the flow of front lines for them to be weaker. So we graphed all this out.
Yes, thank you.
You will be able to kill shields without Wrecker now, and Wrecker 3 will not be an auto guaranteed kill. So it won't be swinging your effectiveness completely, and you'll be a little bit more consistent. Now, what I've also done, or what we're also moving around, is we want to bring damage of front lines down. It just kind of not major, not all. We are hitting some of the problem children.
Definitely
hopefully
can't be
Hans-
Atlas or Koa. Can't be.
You already
any of
mentioned-
those
You've
guys.
actually basically, you've already mentioned. You already know who the problem children are.
Yeah.
So we're taking a look at all the problem children, reducing their damage some. It's not like it's not like I go for. You're not losing 50% of your damage.
Yeah, of course.
You're
Tanks
still going to be
still should be
effective,
okay.
but right now our front lines are very much.
Basically DPS with a lot of HP.
I call them Excel spreadsheets. Like you're just like, all right, your number's bigger. I can't fight you, and that happens. That has led to, I would say, frontline damage has been probably the biggest reason that you see less and less flanks nowadays.
Yeah.
They're still super popular and prominent, right? Despite people complaining, like they still get played a lot, and that's good for us. And their win rates too aren't too bad. Obviously, people think I think there's a few outliers in flanks that are pretty weak right now that we're definitely going to be looking at.
Koga, I'm assuming, is one of them.
No comment on specifics.
Oh yeah. I was just
But yes,
giving my
Koga.
example from. Like,
He's a little bit of a Koga has a couple things that hurt him just kind of due to the nature of his gameplay and what he does.
he actually
Where
had
it's
a
hard to
moment.
make him strong numbers wise because if he's really annoying and super defensive and can kill you effectively, it's frustrating.
He actually had a moment in pro meta.
Uh-huh.
Like
remember watching
this year, but he never got
PML,
played.
I watched. I didn't see him in PPL, but he had like a straight month. I think it was like right before the Dragon Fangs nerf, where you just ran like Genos, Tyra, Torvald,
It was called
Koga,
Koga,
and you just basically played. Was it Edgem? Were you one of the people that ran it? I think. Where, like,
It would have been like
Fuck
last
off,
year
Scott.
Worlds. I remember that.
there
being
was something earlier this year too, where
We ran it earlier.
yeah, where it was like where you just it was like the old Smite comps where you'd be like 4 protect 1. Everybody sit around the Zeus and make sure the Zeus doesn't die. It was that, but
Sounds
with
like aggro's
Koga.
meta, dude.
It was
I remember.
but it was that with Koga. It was like we're just gonna all pocket. The
Oh,
Koga and
I
amp his
remember. That was
damage.
nutty. That was like one game I saw.
It was definitely
that.
edgy.
I don't know if it was that PPL. I thought
It was PML. It was
I thought it was PML.
Koga never really got
I
played.
was so
in
excited when I
PPL.
saw that though. They just they ran
Yeah.
pure
It was like-
Koga amp. And
It
he
was-
just
It was
destroyed their
crazy because
team.
you had the 15% from Genos, the 15% from Torvald, the
Yeah,
25% or the 30% from Torvald. Good
And
lord.
Genos.
The 25% from Tyra and
Yeah.
Koga like 2-shot the back line with Dragon with claws.
it was
and
fun.
But it was cool because it was
Yes.
such a different dynamic than literally any other like play style that I'd seen.
And then their Koga died and they got wiped. I feel like it happened. Like every time the Koga died, they just lost the point.
Yeah.
But like
Put all
that
your
was
eggs
an
in one
interesting
basket.
play style. The pocket amp style.
Koga actually had a moment in the pro mat, and someone called it out earlier because I've said it last week too. But Koga had a time in scrims. Never saw pro play because people were too pussy to run him.
Except that one time.
No, I'm saying like, but that wasn't for the
Well,
reason that he
it's
was
a
being played.
different
He had like a
reason.
time in scrims where he was being run as a counter to Tyra and Torvald, if they got both.
Oh,
Because
interesting, yeah.
Wrecker boosts Adrenaline Junkie, so you get more energy by doing the more damage to the shields,
makes sense.
and you got more dashes, so you bought more time, and the more time you buy, the less effective the amp is. And also, the dash cleanses Tyra Mark, so it was just like a hard counter to that, and it was being run in scrims, and it was fucking sick, and it had like an insane win rate, and it never got played.
Well,
Them's the
you all
breaks.
just kept banning Torvald. That's why I never saw.
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Well, I mean, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you don't want to
Imagine the best players in the world just doing 30% more
No,
damage.
no, I get it. No, I get it.
Yeah, it's interesting for that. But yeah, so we spoke about philosophy. We talked about the record changes and that. So was there anything else you wanted to say about like that direction, or did you want to go into the roles?
I would say that was a big thing for me because I think that leads into the rest. We're also experimenting with Cauterize. That also would come with healing nerfs.
Yes, of course.
Not again more on the light-handed side for that, and we actually got into a long discussion about. I'll say the phrase I've been using for a long time is the burden of knowledge when it comes to our item store. And this isn't meant to fix simply front lines, right? Like that's a great thing that's happening, but it was really to rein in the spread of players and how they're interacting, because we do have a lot of players in our game that are just like mechanically skilled, right? You guys will like the FPS bros, but if my Victor that's insane and nutty and hitting all his shots doesn't buy Wrecker or Cauterize, like I lose the game. And it doesn't matter how good they are; they're losing to stats, and how fast you're able to affect those shields, and how because our supports are really powerful, and actually the health they provide, which we like, it feels good, and we don't want to. When I say nerf support healing numbers, like it's still important for us that supports feel like they're doing a lot of healing.
It hits the same kind of changes that you were talking about frontline nerfs, kind of like in that percentage range.
Whereas like you don't want Cauterize to completely negate your heal. It's the same exact thing, right? You don't want Cauterize to negate your heal.
It just feels bad it's just like gameplay wise, it feels bad.
God, when you get caught 3 as a support, you're
just like cool. Like, what am I? Why did I even press that button?
It's also why those like burst healers kind of have fall off moments, right? Like Furia late game, if your heal caught 3'd versus caught 0'd is, I mean, 1200 with Cherish usually to like 120. That literally changes nothing. Less than a Victor bullet.
Yep. And so we've kind of run into this this interesting dynamic that we've been discussing, and we will continue to discuss,
of course,
until PTS even goes live, and probably past PTS. The necessity of Cauterize as an item in our game, mostly because there's the notion of like if we reduce Cauterize significantly to be like, cool, now you don't need any item, and my teammates that are picking Nimble,
Life Rip and Kill to Heal,
like the game, sure, it may not be the best, and we're like 15% less effective because we don't have Wrecker or Cauterize or anything. Like it's not like I'm guaranteed to lose because we don't have the right items. And that was a huge thing, is like I can just be mechanically skilled, and it gives you an edge to be smart about your items, but it doesn't completely flip the game on its head.
So a lot of things would have to change though if that changes, right? Like something would have to happen to Rejuvenate too, because if Cauterize isn't good and Rejuvenate stays at the same effectiveness now, it would actually just be busted.
Yeah, I mean, there's again, that's what we were kind of talking about, is like if we reduce Cauterize to, I'll just say like 10%, 20%, 30%, where now it's no longer necessary. I feel like to not make Death Ball meta, because we are never going back to that. I assure you.
Sorry, Renegades.
It is the most unfun meta in any game.
Yeah.
Any team-based game where it's just, we're gonna tank up, and it's playing Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Where it's just like our defensive numbers are way better, and you can't break through.
I feel like the healing would have to get way toned down if those were the numbers. You're just using it as an example for to show the
yeah,
scaling, right?
yeah. But like what that would mean, right? Like, because then you're looking at probably like half of, like, you have to nerf either cooldowns go up across the board on supports, which is a potential, because our cooldowns are pretty short when it comes to support abilities.
I just wouldn't feel.
Or the healing numbers have to be like halved, right? And it doesn't feel. That's part of what's fun about our game, is our supports feel impactful when they do heal, and then they can kind of do damage, right? They're not the best at it, but they do enough, and then their healing feels really good. And I think that's why supports are very fun in our game. I personally enjoy them.
That's
obviously,
a dynamic that kind of got not necessarily pulled directly from Smite, but
guys.
I think that's a.
I'm sorry, I mean to cut you off, but Pretty Hair finally just followed me back on Twitter.
Hell yeah!
Congratulations.
How long have I been here? Sorry.
But yeah,
I just
that
wanted
was,
to
like,
say it.
A lot of
that was,
spite
like,
in
a
that.
dynamic that Smite had too. It's like their tanks deal damage. Like, you can play that around, and it maybe
very-
not have directly.
It's very high res
translated.
philosophy, actually.
Yeah, it's like it feels good to do the thing that you want to do. If you come in and you're like, and you come in like with this mentality to play support, you can come in and feel good about playing
Yeah.
support and that kind of stuff.
But right,
Agreed, bad Jake, by the way.
Cauterize
Here,
and
folks.
anti-healing basically lives on its own island compared to the other red cards. And so that's something that we are still discussing. Like, what is the sweet spot that the characters support still feel good, but we don't have death ball meta. But like, if
Not everyone needs
if Victor doesn't go caught, is the world going to end in most situations? Probably not. I mean, that's what we are working towards and finding, and that's going to be like, I can theorycraft all day and put numbers and be like, cool, here's your time to
Yeah,
kill.
it has to be tested
but like,
and
we
everything.
have to get in because that's always like, feeling wise, you'll actually get a much better understanding.
I mean, I had a what was it? Speaking of like the burden of knowledge, you're talking about like Victor's Hood everything, right? I literally just had a game yesterday where I played Drogos. I bought Cauterize. I played against a Victor that ran cardio and rushed life rip, and I was playing. And I'm Drogos. I should be getting hard countered by this guy. It was on Bazaar. That's a wide ass map, but I'm winning those trades because I'm getting healed and he's not.
And that's funny too, right? Because like the cardio OP, it's like OP if you don't buy Cauterize. Like literally, it is OP if you don't buy Cauterize.
Yeah.
But because we have Cauterize, you're just like, then it becomes the strength of that talent is like turned on its head once I got even caught too.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
You see that with other stuff like the stun con talent.
Yeah.
Like
It's
that-
like insanely good at the
level
start.
At level 1, you're just like, why am I like? I feel like I just like sat down in a recliner after getting hit by this. Like I'm taking a nap after this. But then when you have like Brazil 2, it's like it's not really any different. So like it's a similar dynamic to like that.
Yeah, and then I know I'm talking about the same things, but like Cauterize essentially, if you were playing the meta of Paladins and not running 5 damage or flanks, thank you, Ranked. No, it's not that. It's pretty good. It's actually pretty good. I queue with people, so we always got a team comp. But Cauterize is definitely like always prevalent, whereas like Wrecker and Bulldozer and even Resilience to some degree aren't guaranteed to like. It's like, cool, I have Wrecker against one character that is shield.
Yeah.
Like,
Like there's
Cauterize
always
like always necessary.
Even
and that
if
is
there's no supports, like it counters the life rip, the kill, the heal, the healing, and build. Like it has, even without supports, Cauterize is still good.
Plus,
to buy.
our tanks have like healing, like our tanks
Shout.
have card healings, like Con Shout, and Nara
Yep.
has healing in her cards plus healing amp. Like there's just it does everything because most characters, not every character, but a lot of our characters just have this ability to inherently like sustain even a little bit.
Yeah.
And you know it just helps. In most scenarios. Although we were talking about this in the playtest, like how much you want to laser focus Cauterize that you just like don't look at the enemy team comp because like we were playing against like 4 characters with hard CC. And we were like talking about like
I didn't even look at it.
Yeah.
I wasn't even paying attention because we're playtesting, so it's not hyper serious.
Yeah.
but like I ended up going resilient.
Brazil.
Yeah, I ended up like I was Resil 3 and Kevin looked at his build. He's like, I should buy Resilience 1. Like,
It was the last round. It was 3-3.
Yeah.
I had enough for Brazil 1 exactly against who was that? It was
we were against
BK.
Atlas, Rom, BK. Who was their support? IO? Atlas, Rom, BK, IO.
and we didn't. I didn't.
Rezi's pretty good. Rezi's
playing?
pretty decent.
We blame something Nando, just get Luna stunned
In
for
my
your shield.
defense, I ran Cardio Victor and rushed Haven and Blast Shields and ran around the point.
Okay.
We didn't win.
We did not.
One of those. No, but you
fun.
were talking about we talked about the Cauterize and this stuff,
Yep.
but you wanted it to kind of go into what you want the roles to kind of be.
So I think there's going to be a lot of role fallout, and I think it'll fix two of the bigger problems. When I say, well, I mean, there's going to be a lot of just like adaption, no matter
That's true.
what
When you
the
say
things.
when you say Fallout, I always think of like,
Yeah.
now it has a very negative connotation because
Fallout's
it's
a pretty-
76.
yeah, it's a pretty
Very
heavy-handed
serious,
word. I
like,
will say, it
I'm
is
dropping
very-
a fucking nuclear bomb on this game.
That is
Like,
generally what Fallout is referred to as. Like it's that bad. No, it's more so. I think flanks will get a little bit better because frontline damage is going down, right? Because like it's all working to do the same thing. We just have to do all of the things at once. So both the normalization of shield health, deployable health, and then Wrecker and Bulldozer, which will make front lines feel better late game, which means we can take a little bit of damage out of them. So they're still overall effective, right? That's kind of the give
They're
and
just
take.
more effective at tanking than at doing damage.
Yes, and there's a couple numbers changes too. We gave some supports like a second longer shield, a little bit buffs to their cooldown cards, taking a second off cooldowns. Like there's a lot of micro changes.
And none of that
in
stuff
this
is
patch.
finalized.
None of it's finalized.
Yeah.
But there will be a lot of micro changes about like slightly bumping up the defensive capabilities, not completely shifting, just like I'm getting my shields maybe 2 seconds more often now, and then overall it's better. But I lose a little bit of damage. And so I think flanks will naturally become more prominent, and so they don't really need, I don't really think they need a ton of change right now.
Other than maybe the problem child we talked about.
But the ones, but more on the back end, right?
Yeah.
They're just like weak in general.
Like maybe Andy, Koga, some of those characters.
It's one of those things where if you like, the easy route is just buffing all the flanks if you want to see them more, but that's not like healthy for the game state. And you really want to just like take the route or the routes that like progress the longevity and the just the fun factor of the game. Make it more fun. People keep coming back to it. People keep wanting to play what they want to play and having it feel good. And so
also doing a couple some economy shifts too. And
As in like in-game,
Like, maybe
in-game
get
economy or like
20
gold?
per second.
Oh, that stuff. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, duh. Sorry, I thought you meant like I wasn't
I'm
sure
really
if you meant
excited
like
about that actually.
I wasn't sure if you meant like crystals gold or if you meant like credits and stuff.
You're gonna feel like you have significantly outside of just not the burden of knowledge of like, or the necessity of red cards, but like being able to opt into, instead of, I think right now it's what, Illuminate and those are the only level 1
There's gonna
combo
be
you
more-
can do.
there's gonna be more
There's
one-
gonna be more level 1 combos of like buying one-offs of other things.
Yep.
Right now we're
you can do double 200s in the green tree.
Yeah, you could do life rip and
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah, and that's what everybody.
I mean, but
who
all
does.
of the options are basically
Yeah.
bad. All of the buy 2 item options are bad right now.
So, and
in
I
our
think
game.
that kind of rolls into what you were saying about Cauterize and Wrecker potentially being less effective, because if they're less effective, they can cost less, right?
Yes. We
Yeah.
actually increased Cauterize price right now. It's a very, again, like the
Well, that's because
necessity
you
of
haven't lowered it yet, right?
we have, so we're still, again, this is like, Cauterize is the one that is going to require absolutely the most like back and forth.
Detail
And like, no matter what I'm saying now, I'm going to test other variations of it just to get a feeling of like, well, what if all healing cooldowns went up? And it's a lot of it's kind of going back to the roots about how the different classes are interacting. And so like, we're not really touching damage and flanks and how their classes are interacting, but we're touching front lines and supports, and the other two operate around those, and so they'll shift naturally.
But there are
in their
some
effectiveness.
There are some. I'm sure there's some damages you guys are keeping an eye on, and I think the one that has had a lot of contention specifically here, and it's the only one I'm going to like go out of my way to talk about the balance of right now is, I think you can guess it's Strix.
Okay.
And you said you've been like at least keeping an eye on the picks and bans and pro matches and stuff, and I think Strix's ban rate has skyrocketed.
Yes.
Recently.
I have a question for you guys.
Yes.
Strix hasn't changed in years.
Yes. Well, he did
stealth.
have the one state change, and it was the stealth change,
Oh, the pop out of stealth.
Yeah.
The nerf.
which made him better at dodging in stealth, because since he's not like immediately visible, it's easier for him to kite away when he's getting dove by someone if they don't have like super consistent damage, right? Ruckus is seeing a raise because he has that big AoE as a tank when he gets on, and
He's
can
much easier
track
to
with the
track,
miniguns.
yeah.
Yes.
But Cassie, if she misses one shot, suddenly that fight is immediately swung.
So besides that, though, right, his shift from bottom tier to top tier, when he did have the unauthorized use change, which there is a combo for it, but Crackshot has always been his best talent, and we've known this. I believe that's what's run in pros now, or is it still unauthorized?
It's unauthorized.
It is for it's for the burst against flanks, right?
Yeah.
You do 2,400 damage.
Yeah.
Like,
What-
and I think the flare also is mixed damage. It's AoE, it's blast shield, and it's haven, so it's even harder to itemize against in that sense. But it's basically just the fact that these top tier players, it's never going to be like if he has to get changed, it's going to affect him even worse in casual play because
Might be
it's
a
really
bug.
he's only this good. Like even the console league and the minor league sometimes isn't even picking him. It's just these Premier League players that are able to hit everything.
You can never
that
get
make
the
it
jump on him.
Yeah.
The blast shield thing might be a bug. But I don't know if that's actually that might be something we have to talk about.
Yeah.
Because technically it only should be damaging one person.
I already know what the issue is.
Yeah, and here's some.
He
people
said that. I
talking
was like,
about
oh, I bet you I know why it's doing that.
Here's some people talking about this. He also stays invisible when CC'd. 1200 damage when Chainess has to charge up for it, but he has less mobility. But the stealth kind of makes up for that.
So yeah, I will say we are going to make some adjustments to him, mostly on the pistol. It's always been the highest DPS weapon in the game, so.
Which is kind of insane, honestly.
Yeah.
As a side weapon, yeah.
It's again, right, when you're looking at scales, right, always talk about this, or opportunity cost, whatever you want to refer to it is. It's like, it is the most inaccurate weapon in the game, and therefore highest DPS. Like, obviously that's a super basic explanation, but that is generally why the pistol is more powerful, right? And then you have the cards to amplify it. He's also a pretty... Is he super old? No, he's not super
Strix,
old. Like
Strix was
right before
Strix was
OB64.
released. Strix was released the day before I joined joined Hi-Res.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, or the day after, one of the two. It was like the same week. It was kind of like, so yeah, he's just over 2 years old.
So Strix also, like, just in general, right? The identity of that character, or snipers in general, is like, if they miss their shot on a flank, they lose most of the time, unless the flank is missing their stuff.
Yeah.
Or they can't read him, and he just like happens to get lucky on the stealth.
But Strix doesn't even really have that problem, right? Because he could just pull out the pistol and flare them.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's kind of part
Which
of
is
it.
a skill shot in its own right, because it does have like a different projectile speed than the hit scan snipe, and you do have to also track them through the whole like swapping animation as well. But it is very powerful when you do land it.
He doesn't. He's not as overtly punished as he should be for missing Talon rifle shot.
Yeah.
And at the level where they're hitting Talon rifle
It is
shot,
fast.
it's
Every
even
time.
harder.
And it's
not
also
hit
right
scan
at that level you're
buffet.
talking about, like, the pistol being inaccurate doesn't really matter when you're talking about
You're
if a
tracking
flank is close
perfectly.
enough and you're talking about a pro player.
Yeah.
That's just going to nail everything.
Yeah,
And even
it's significantly more powerful at this top level where like I'm watching Chronix and he's just like
Kanga has
hitting
Kanga is literally first picking Strix.
Oh
on
no,
every
I've
map.
been watching.
I'm letting
I've been
Adanas
watching. Yeah, I know. Well, they also had the dynamic with Envy where they literally talked about it on Twitter after the set where Kanga was first picking Victor, and like they were banning Strix first picking Victor, and Envy had to like pull it away from them. Like the whole meta for picks and bans was just. Was like, we want to first pick your Victor so that you don't get it. Sorry, Chronix.
Yeah.
One thing I was gonna say. Do you think that the Talon rifle being so effective in close range is part of it? Like, you want him to switch to the pistol in close range because that's just how like the dynamic should work. But do you think that maybe if it had like a ramp up over distance, could maybe go towards that? Because that would give him like the same thing. Like Kinessa's shots don't always do 1200 damage. She has to wait, but Strix will always get that pocket 1200 no matter what.
So you're getting into something that I try and be very careful about, especially considering I've been on both sides of the coin. I've been a competitive player. I wouldn't say pro, right? It was very early in Smite esports.
You went to a LAN.
I went to a LAN. I got 4th.
That's more than a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot more.
Out of how many teams?
4 teams.
Yep.
That's like me saying I went to Vegas.
Very similar. But I know, like, I definitely was like had very strong opinions as a competitive player because even when I stopped being pro and joined Hi-Res as production, like I was still a top 50 ranked player. I grinded a lot, right? Grandmasters when it first came out, was like top 30 and stuff. And so I had very strong opinions about like, well, just change this. You get into a lot of situations where you change something for the sake of balance and you lose the feel of the character. And that is important to me to be like, I want the characters to feel good and balance around that. Like, I want their gameplay to feel good primarily. Obviously, I also want them to be balanced, but I don't want to ruin how a character feels for the sake of balance. It's identifying what is the correct change. So, like, the ramp up over time, right? Like,
not over time. It's over distance, not over time.
or over distance. Yeah, that's just like when I look at a sniper, like that doesn't like that's not how snipers work. That's not the idea and romance you get from a sniper, right? Because a sniper is a very like romantical class. You're like, I want to be the one shot, one kill guy, or I want the powerful hits that's hard to aim over distance. Like it's a very, very certain type of power fantasy. And part of that is just consistency in your shots and how much damage you do. And so we try and be like, consistency is key and kind of trying to a player's interpretation on the other end of understanding how much damage you take and why without having to fully maybe understand what the elements of the kit are. Just like, oh, that guy, the sniper, hits me for a lot of my health. And when I get close to him, now he's not hitting me as much. And so, right, that's extra layers when it comes to like gameplay and just like front-facing design that we try and be careful with. But I'm not saying that that couldn't work for the balance purposes. It's
Yeah.
mostly like I think that warps the feeling of Strix too much to warrant doing it just for the sake of balance.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, do you think that Strix doing 1200 point blank range is that integral to the feel of him as a character, specifically with the Talon rifle? Because if he got rid of that, maybe the pistol could stay closer to what it is now. If that's what they're having to rely on at close range.
I mean, like part of it is like I would say like you. Yes, the pistol is good, and that's why you're seeing Strix become more meta. But like the character is meant to be a sniper, and I want the sniper to feel good.
Well, the
primarily,
pistol,
like
honestly,
that
the
is his whole
sniper-
gameplay
yeah.
is sniping,
Honestly,
and
the
it's everything
sniper-
works
the
around
sniper
it.
is why he's that good. That's why I'm bringing it up. The pistol being good at close range is big, but literally people are running Dexterous 5 just to get to the flare faster. They're running.
It's all
They're
about, like-
quick scoping, switching to the flare, hitting the flare, and then switching again to quick scope again. That's what it is, because burst damage makes it harder for you to, at least at this level, like you think about what fight you can do. You think about what fight you can take, right? And you're like, I have this much HP, and you go in the Strix, suddenly you took 2,400 damage that quickly, and suddenly your mathematics in your head change.
Yes. So there's a couple elements to that, right? One is I am a sniper getting dove, and so I need to have a very quick reaction time, right? The scope is not a short scope, right? Like you have to be very skilled when you are getting dove by a flank that can actually enter your space.
Yeah.
And yes, super skilled players will do that. They're not going to do it all the time though. And it's the fact that if I hit and then hit the other thing, like I have just done like everything perfectly. The issue is I don't think that's necessarily an issue for a very hard to pull off mechanical combo. I think that it should have good results, right? You should feel rewarded for doing that. But if I miss either of those, I just switch out to the pistol and kill them anyway.
Yeah.
And that is like the second that goes down, you're going to see Strix dying more. And that's going to, I think, completely change kind of how effective he actually is.
Okay.
It's like generally like if you nerf 2 to 3 things about a character, like you'll tank them.
Yeah.
Even
like
if
Nano,
it's small nerfs, right? Typically, it's better to be like
Nano got more than
very
small nerfs,
very
but-
small nerfs to multiple things, or like here's the one thing that we want to bring down. Otherwise, you run into a dangerous game. And like even sometimes it's one thing. Amani, right? I guess she was the projectile size too to make it harder to hit. But like the not being able to have a 2-second root, she dropped 10% that patch. 10.
Yeah.
That was the largest change I've ever seen of a character for just like swapping a card.
Yeah, because that's what lets her live, right? She's not the best at being dove, but rooting you for that long lets her maybe win that trade. That was like the key for her.
Sets up for
surviving, I
your
think.
team too. That's
Yeah, of course.
It's
really good opener.
when I look at meta, and when I look at kind of what players' perceptions are, and then look at what statistically is good, and then try and analyze like, okay, well, how skilled is it to be good with this character? What you see a lot of is characters that affect their team in positive ways or affect multiple enemies to help your team set up, even if that character is not following up on kills, statistically will be better. Because it's hard to like, I'm going to use Yomi versus, I'm trying to like emphasize how I want to explain this point. I'll use Yomi versus Smolder. Okay. Smolder statistically now has always been the best talent by like 5% win rate. And when I analyze the Yomi versus Smolder, right, because everyone's like, Yomi's OP, Yomi's OP, Yomi's OP for a long time. Every third shot, what is the cycle of Strix? Like, or not Strix, sorry, Zen? Like 5 seconds? It's like 0.7, 0.7, 1.3?
It's like 3 seconds.
So like, we'll say 3. So every 3 seconds I get 150 extra damage. Versus I have something that resets my life to full.
Yeah.
But Yomi's OP. Yomi is clearly the best winning talent. Well, it's like player perception is I get the bonus damage, and that feels very much how aggression was always picked, right? I see my numbers get bigger, and I also get to confirm a kill every once in a while. But realistically, if you're just trying to do 150 extra damage, you should probably pick a different character.
Well, I don't think people. I don't think
Or
people
just
are really,
hit another bullet.
People are also
Or
not
just hit
really
another
running
bullet.
it. People aren't really running it. For
Not as
the-
much anymore,
for
but I'm
the
just trying to
damage.
get to like
no,
kind
people
of
are
the
running
mindset.
it in like the pro play a lot. Zin, I mean, we don't see it because we don't see Zin as much because of the billow changes. But I think people. The reason Yomi's strength isn't really in the damage. Yomi's strength is in the fact that Zin can stay far away before committing, whereas with all the other ones, he's not doing any damage if he's sitting far back.
Yeah, but again, it kind of gets into that. me staying alive in a fight guaranteed and
Yeah.
getting to fully reset is probably going to be more valuable over the course of the game and better for my team, and more likely that me just staying alive means I get to retain more damage, right? Like that time from dying to respawning to like going, like just because I get to do 450 extra poke every 3 seconds or 150 extra poke every 3 seconds, or obviously the range you can kind of get a little bit in.
I would
right?
honestly
Like,
say 850.
that is
extra
less
poke.
that is less effective than just surviving like 2 times
Yeah.
because you have Smolder. And again, this is looking at statistics, right? In the moment, it's different, and you're definitely going to have those moments where you're like, that extra 150 helped me secure a kill, or that no range on Yomi slash allowed us to initiate a fight that maybe we won. But you're looking at those one confirmation. It's confirmation bias, similar to aggression, where it's like, my number's bigger, I'm more effective. Defensive things are really, really hard for a player to perceive the strength of. Just like how people don't pick Cauterize.
It's easy to perceive it on the other side, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you'll get frustration like, I can never kill this Zen. It happens.
Yeah.
Especially old Zen. But then, like, example, why people don't pick Cauterize, it's because, like, I don't actually see that I'm being more effective.
Yeah.
Yeah, statistically, I'm destroying you by having caught 3, and now your support does nothing, but I don't feel that as a player. And that's why it's
Yeah.
typically just a player that jumps in and isn't, like, analyzing or trying to be a pro.
isn't
Won't,
gonna-
it'll take a while
yeah.
for them to realize that. But that's what it's always interesting to me, right? Because we'll always see emphasis on damage being strong, or like the perception of talents, like the damage one, or like doing more damage is better, and then statistically it'll be a little bit different. Like Formidable is also a super strong talent as well, just like generally
And that
having
actually
all
is
that
meta.
extra
That's
health.
what everyone-
Yeah,
everyone's running.
but
that.
but that had to come after Scorch. Now, to be fair, Scorch was really good.
You
Scorch
could say
was
that.
so
Some might
good.
say
Oh.
OP.
I would.
Well, honestly, I think Brand was what really took it over the edge.
It was brand, the
Because
movement
We never
speed.
saw
It was all of it.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was-
yeah.
it
It was the
the
whole
full
package.
package.
For
It was the
sure.
full
Like
package.
to be fair, we never did get to see old Scorch without Brand,
Mm-hmm.
without the Cauterize on the front.
Well, we
never-
didn't, but they probably play tested
Yeah, you guys
it.
probably. Yeah, I'm sure you guys did.
Myron did.
I mean, that was Myron and I both ran it. I
He
mean,
did
it
run a bunch
was
of Scorch.
like it. You still like. I guess it's kind of similar to Yomi, where like I don't know, it feels good. Like you're hitting your fireball for like 50 extra. Like that feels good. And then like the circumstances that you can line it up, it feels like
Real.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
feels nutty, but also like, and like it. To be fair, the numbers there were like probably a little more like bloated than Yomi, just because it went way further up.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
We are giving some love to Scorch a little bit. It's coming with some caveats, though.
Yeah.
Please less.
Well, he's getting other
Formidable.
changes too, like with the shield, right? I
Yeah.
like Formidable.
It
I
is
was-
not fun to play. Oh.
Here's like.
What, Formidable isn't fun
I
to play?
disagree.
Or you
I
say,
I like Formidable.
Well,
I don't mind it, but I also like when I'm playing. Like I
Go keep
like,
versus
shifted
Nando.
my Fernando play style like really fast after Scorch, because
Yeah.
I was like, I think Myron and I were very much like I'm gonna sit in your back line and sit on your back line, and they will all die all the time forever. Kind of players. And then like when we made the changes, and like I was already playing Formidable sometimes, like solo tank Fernando. Whenever I played that,
You
already
needed
was
Formidable.
I already
Yeah.
was playing Formidable
Yeah.
in that kind of scenarios.
it's also, you said you don't enjoy playing Formidable?
right
It's,
now.
it's just not exciting.
He's
It's just
also
not
off-
exciting.
he's also
I'm
off
a
tank.
very
He's an
aggressive.
off tank
I'm
player
off
too.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
and I
Yeah.
completely understand that. And that stuff might change when it's like a Tolkien playing Formidable or something instead, comparatively.
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna just. I think I might. I didn't realize how long we've been talking because it's been 2 hours. So I want to do the Q&A at least for a little bit because we this is usually the longest segment of the show, but we've been talking for 2 fucking hours already.
That's dope.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
I'm
kinda
glad
fun
that
by.
we. I mean, I'm glad that we've been able to generate this kind of discussion.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, it's been kind of nonstop. So I'm gonna switch it to Q&A. Because Dethroner is Dethroner, but we can kind of have our own topics while we wait for questions. But I'm sure they're going to. I've already seen some coming in.
We probably
in the past.
we may have more time, maybe not for other stuff later.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
And this is honestly like, what is it? Is there a chance of changing the free-to-play heroes to make the ranked experience better? That's kind of a good
What?
question because the free-to-play who's the free-to-play tank? It's like Ruckus.
Ruckus.
And he's like not
Uh-huh.
solo
We are
tank
adding a
LVO.
character.
Okay.
To the free-to-play line. So it'll get a little bit better, I think, at the very least.
Go, yeah, and I want to go. I generally want to talk about the
How much impact did
yeah.
Bees have on NIP this last week? He was everything.
Obviously, is
know.
everything.
I don't know. To be honest, I mean, it's possible. Like you see dynamics in pro matches, like that team comp nip is like everybody is like.
Very emotional.
Yeah, and sometimes you just need someone to just
Lighten the
chat
mood.
with them outside of the game, like between games, even if they're like coaches don't always just
should talk
bring
Torv.
the
can talk
knowledge. Like coaches do
talk
have
Torv in a
knowledge
second.
and other stuff.
Mhm.
Oh, I was pointing to you.
Oh,
I wasn't pointing at you.
sorry. But like coaches do different things for different teams. And you definitely like see that across like several
Like
different
meta's
esports.
definitely different from Vapor.
Yeah,
for us.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Vapor and Meta do very different things. And I actually should have brought this up when we were talking about Frontlines and Wrecker and stuff. But do you guys have a more clear idea of what you want to do with Torvald, or do you not want to divulge it at all? Or
I want to change Torvald to some degree.
yeah, well, I think everybody does.
Yeah.
My goal, I think, my personal goal is to turn him into a point tank. Now, with all the changes we're doing, we've basically backburnered him so you won't really
Of course.
see any changes to Torvald coming. Not outside of just numbers coming in
Well,
patch 1.
he might just get raw better if the record changes are going
So
down,
he
right?
will, but I don't necessarily just him getting better doesn't make his gameplay loop
Funner
feel any better or feel any more fun. So we'll be looking at him in the future more.
Yeah.
So.
I've seen a couple of posts. I saw them earlier as well. The issue with the Grandmaster / Master leaderboards is a bug that we do know about, and an issue that we have been working on. It's like when you get to leaderboards and that kind of stuff, it's a lot more of like a back end thing. So there's a lot more things like that you have to like. There's a lot more moving parts when it comes to that. So. We've just been working on it. Like, it's kind of tough because I know that GM is like the top 100 Masters players, so it's like
It's always changing too.
right. So like, I mean, we're still looking at it. But I know that like, at the very least, you guys wanted confirmation that it was like on our list, and it very much is. And
Because you
it's
see it every
very
time you go
much
into ranked.
Yeah,
Mhm.
no,
Like
for
it-
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you're doing placements, it's like clearly there. So
Yeah, for sure.
tough to miss, 100%. Dethroner, we don't know. I mean, we said the tanks like Khan, Atlas, Koa, like the tanks that aren't like meant to be hardcore damage dealers are the ones that are most like
You
getting
could
hit
probably
initially.
guess what ones they're going to.
Yeah.
is what
And
they
I
said.
think the one we didn't mention
Ooh,
this because
that's
we
a good
said we
question.
would. Yeah, we can say that in a second. But the only one we didn't discuss fully was Ruckus, and I think some
Yeah, the
people
new
were very
Ruckus
scared what those changes could mean because he's always been kind of on that tightrope for professional play. Like
Yeah.
even when he's unplayable in casuals, he's just kind of rolled over people.
Yeah, Ruckus.
Rucker.
Ruckus / Wrecker. So yeah, Ruckus is he's a troubled child as well. Problem child
Without
as well.
a doubt. Yeah.
Falls in line with like emoji and a Torvald, I would say, for like
Difficulty to balance.
Very
difficulty in general. Identity. They have some identity issues. They're trying to figure themselves out.
Yeah.
Old Ruckus playstyle was pretty toxic or unhealthy, in my opinion, to paladins. Where it revolved around a front line with a lot of health. Essentially, I personally have put Ruckus in not really like technically front line, but really he's just a
tanky
tankier,
DPS.
a tanky damage, and I think that's
Yeah.
fine. Like I think like characters that work as a little bit of hybrid are fun, and that's kind of where I want to keep him at, and that's where I'm pushing him, going to push any changes for him towards. Not necessarily that he's now going to be standing on the point. I just don't think without a larger rework, his playstyle can't facilitate that. And I think I think Ruckus has a fun playstyle. It's takes a little bit to get into, more than our other characters.
Yeah.
Mostly with the advance.
He also just doesn't play like the other front lines in the game.
At all.
Mm-hmm.
So he definitely has a learning curve. I don't like the playstyle of just like, again, he was a stat wall before, where he just ran at you and then
Yeah, he was a stat check basically.
Killed you faster than you killed him, and also
had a personal shield that also he had a bunch of DR in his cards and
he
kits
also got
too.
to slow you.
Got to slow you. It's like every annoying thing ever in one character. Like self shield, higher health than you, equal damage, Actually, he actually did have more damage than a lot of characters before we nerfed it, like 2 years ago. That was one of the first things I did was nerf Torval when I joined that team. It's like, get this character out of here.
Speaking of joining that team, I don't know if
Paladins?
you were finished. Yeah, there was a question.
Yeah,
about,
I wanted to mention that one.
There was
the
a
one Jake
question
asked.
about how did you make the transition from production to caster to
that's a whole-
community to lead dev of another game.
What is my life story?
Yeah,
That's a long one.
that was like over the course of like 3 or 4 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to answer Ruckus because essentially you're finding out that I'm not confident in anything right now. Like I've thought of a million things. None of it is like that's the solution. There's definitely some things I can move. Like there's numbers I can move around where it's like again I can get it to work balance wise. I'm confident in that, but I want the field to still be there and to have a very distinct. I want him to have a play style that feels good. Yep. That's more important to me. Part of that was the going to why I'm moving rockets into base. I just think that feels better, and I like the identity of him as a character to have a minigun that's wind up that has AOE rockets. And then the interesting thing about that is that he becomes both effective against Haven and Blast Shield. And so like being able to amplify those in different ways, like that's kind of where I want him to go, where like he has 2 sources of damage and you have cards that you can build into either one of them. And it will like him getting rockets in means he will be adjusted elsewhere. That is not.
Yeah,
I gave you
definitely.
one part of. I gave you one thing that I felt was exciting when I spoiled that.
Okay.
That maybe that's all I needed to say before I went into like where is Ruckus gonna live in season 3. More so like I want to do that again for gameplay because I think it will make him a better and more fun and interesting character, and I will balance around that.
Yeah,
Whether it
I was
be
gonna say. I think
CDs.
we talked about like the dive potential of aerial assault with 3 rockets.
That would be so fun to do.
I can tell you that if he is able to kind of roll out with
Both.
vertical dashes and 3 dashes plus the DR plus 3 missiles, he will be probably bannable in pro.
Yes. If that was the
Without
only change,
doubt.
I would not make just that the only. There's actually a line underneath that where I was debating like whether I wanted to like nerf the damage on the rockets, and I just didn't show that. It's literally marked on patch notes with a red highlight for a revisit once we actually start playtesting.
Of course.
Before, if you want to get into your story about role changing, I wanted to answer Ginu's comment because he's posted it a couple times. Again, another thing that we are very aware of. We've made comments about being very aware of delay issues, and it's something that we like are consistently doing work on in the back end to like look at it and see how it pans out, and then revisit it and do more and all that kind of stuff.
Is that like? I don't know if you guys can. I could even divulge this because I really don't know. But like, do you guys know what the problem is? Is it even something on our end with the servers for?
I have not been. I understand there's an issue, but I haven't been a part of like the team.
There's.
even
I
on
don't.
our end, something we need to
Again,
do?
it's like it's something that's like that. I think a little bit people on our team can speak to a little bit more than I can.
I would love to answer like if I knew. But I am not a part of the one working to fix that issue.
It started happening in NA too.
Okay.
A little bit. The delay
little
in the
bit.
lobby.
Okay.
Not as much as
I
the
mean,
others.
that
It's
is
really random,
That
though.
is
Yeah.
good to know from a QA perspective, and unfortunate to hear from a QA from a someone who wants to keep working on it.
I mean, if it's like
Yeah.
everybody in a
Perspective.
server, I don't know. To me, maybe never mind. I don't know enough to say anything. Realistically, people are literally quitting because of the delay. Yeah, it's making competitive very difficult because it mostly affects custom games way more than casual games. But again, and knowing that doesn't change anything if we can't really pinpoint the issue, or if it's something that we can even do anything about right now.
I can assure you, it is not a simple thing.
Yeah.
Based on who I personally know has looked into it, and they have very big brains. It's
The
like
big
all of our
brains.
intelligence combined multiplied by 10.
The
would
wrinkles,
still not
the
even
wrinkles
touch
on
it.
their brain are.
There's a lot of
unreal.
smart people in game. You
yeah.
find some of those people that are just like,
Yeah.
you're a smart motherfucker.
Yeah. 100.
Like you just we have some super intelligent people.
Yeah.
So it's.
Yeah. Sorry. So life story stuff. If you want.
I will TLDR summarize because it could be long.
Okay.
Competitive player for Smite. Quit my job. Ended up getting invited to work at the Smite launch tournament.
As a commentator.
As a production assistant.
Okay.
I basically moved a bunch of stuff and pressed buttons and made replays. Stuff that like I could learn there, and I just had a strong enough tech like I know computers. I'm like, okay, yeah, it's not. There wasn't a difficult learning curve for like cutting replays, and doing some light production and like exporting to YouTube. They essentially, when they started the SPL, they offered me a contract for like 2 weeks or something or a month to come down. Or come up from Florida. I was very I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I literally just quit my job like a month before all this happened because I didn't want to do retail anymore.
I don't blame you. I've been there.
Yep.
Yeah, I was going back to schools because I hadn't completed it yet, or was putting more time into it than I was previously. And that was like, okay, I want to finish school faster because I had to do. I did 40 and did school, which was a lot.
Yeah.
And then. Sorry, I backtracked a little bit there. So got a contract position, and then I was offered a job at the end of it, and then I started working for Hi-Rez and production crew for a while. I actually had an internal desire to kind of cast because I actually had done some community casting with Parabellum Esports.
Jake might know. I think Jake would be the only person.
Super. I mean, we're talking like 6 years ago, 6.5 years ago. So I did a bunch of community casting, enjoyed it. Eventually I was like, I asked to join during, I think, season 2 of the Smite Pro League casting. And they're like, cool, do a couple auditions again. They're like, oh, we didn't know you want to do that. Sure. And they had a need of analysts at the time, which coming from a competitive player, and I was hardcore grinding rank while working at Hi-Rez and doing production at that time.
Yeah.
So essentially I was able to make that transition. The lead ended up leaving. They put me into the role more just for managerial stuff, right? They're just like, you will handle it the best. So I got that. And then I was like, I enjoyed casting. I really did. But I kind of looked like, do I want to do it for the rest of my life? Because I had kind of just like joined Hi-Rez and then was just kind of along for the ride for so long without ever second guessing myself about like, what do I want to do? And it was a couple years ago, I think it was like after Worlds or something, or during Worlds, that I'm like, I realized I wanted to get into game development and design.
It was like World Season 3, right? Something
Yeah.
like
What I realized I loved was more people enjoying the product. Because I remember like opening Worlds when I was like, it was the first time I was the lead. And just like seeing everyone happy and excited and cheering for the game. I was like, that to me was more rewarding than anything casting had brought. Or I guess it was the method, right? Because casting brought me that same joy when it comes to like crowd reaction, people loving the stuff we're doing. But it wasn't necessarily the casting that was it. I enjoyed the people enjoying the thing that I helped work and make and create.
Yeah.
And really, I looked at it as like, I want to get into game design. And there was a number of people in the company that had already done some transitions, so I knew it was a possibility for me. So I asked, made my intention clear, worked in community for a year. Mostly, I was just like joined a development cycle, got to understand a lot, and then I was able to make the jump into design. after that. So that was the short version of the long story.
Yeah.
And that was a pretty not short version.
I gotta say, speaking of like casting and getting that feeling, like there can't be separate balance because it's crossplay.
So the big question now is, is there any like, have you looked at Talus, like thought about like buffing him or like making him weaker on console and stronger on
You
PC?
can't. That's impossible because of crossplay. It's the same build.
You think it's just impossible, or like
How could
it's impossible. Also, it's not ideal to hold to metas. It's not easy upkeep. And it's not easy tech, and it's a lot more effort. And also our structure, we're not set up to do that. We have not been set up to do that, and like we would have to invest into architecture for us to be able to do that. And I cannot speak on what that would involve, how much it would, how long it would take, or how much it would cost.
Yeah.
But I am aware we would have to do a lot of work
for that
to actually get that to work.
But in general, the vision for Talos, I mean, like, what do you do as a designer for a character that's busted on console but terrible on PC? And when the servers are together, like, where would you want to end up with that?
I'll say, so that's an important note, because that to me gets into also the same thing of like, we have to, I don't want to say we have to appeal, because that's not the right word. Like, we have many different players from many different ages, many different skill ranges, many different, like, how much time they can invest, what they enjoy character-wise, what they enjoy game mode-wise. And it is my job as a designer to not design for any one of those groups.
Yeah, of course.
It is designed for Paladins as a whole, and that's always kind of what I look for. And there are going to be some outlier characters, both in pro play, at low-level queue, and then console to PC. So we know about them. As long as they are not breaking, right? It's much easier for me if it's weak, super weak in one area.
Yeah.
Because then it's not as bad as like it's broken. My understanding of Talus numbers wise is that he's good, but he's not like the most broken thing on console. He's not like completely breaking the game.
There's some console players who come into my chat and tell me that Talus is like Makoa level.
Yeah.
I don't believe them. There was literally a guy who went out of his way to Q-snipe me just to play Talus against me.
Interesting.
Just to prove a point to me that Talus was broken.
Did it feel
and
strong?
I played Terminus into triple flank. Of course it felt strong. I was playing Terminus into triple fucking flank.
Yeah, that's not
There's some concessions that have to be made,
Yeah.
essentially. And that's like, again, right, just like the talents of like, cool, this one's not really pro play, but people enjoy it, right? Like there are concessions that were like, we're not going to be, like you're never going to hit the sweet spot on some characters, just how the nature of their designed and their weapon type and their fall off. So as long as nothing is like breaking any individual grouping of like high skill, low skill, pro play, and then console PC, like I am happy with that at least.
For console players and aim assist, there was actually something implemented this most recent patch where you can turn off aim assist if you have gyro on for PlayStation and Switch. So that is something that you can do on console on those two consoles. Xbox unfortunately does not have inherent gyro capabilities, but you can also do that on if you're playing PC gamepad. You can also do that with a DualShock. DualShock, it's not something that you'd see often, but if you were playing with the DualShock 4 on PC, you also have access to gyro capabilities on that controller.
And that's definitely actually we had a time where there was a short period where the build here didn't have that. Like it had it in a playtest, and I used it, and I'm like, "Oh, this is kind of fun."
Yeah.
And then thank God, because a console player messaged me and was like,
Yes.
"Hey man, is there a gyro land?" I'm like, "Yeah."
We had discussed with various parties about that.
Okay. I went and double checked to make sure, just to let him know, because console wars.
Yeah,
coming up in
and
2
we
weeks,
had been messaging with people here, that being like, "Hey, we made a change. This is the build that will have this update to allow you to play DualShock with gyro on the PC client."
Is this man talking about the sedan punch? So
I don't know what refer.
Listen, if it's Priz, just
make Talus punch go up.
Talus's like punch hitbox was like the size of a car.
It was the size of Terminus's shield.
It was like 4 times extended past his body.
console piece of rounds. I think we definitely missed some stuff because
We missed 2.
I saw a lot of discussion
cut me off,
between
'cause I'll-
Ricotta and Dethroner arguing about whether Bunny should ask about Talus or not.
Okay.
Oh yeah, Spunky wanted to ask about or let you know about the bug where you put your back to a wall and you can't heal is still there.
Yep. Yeah. So it's and I can go into like a little bit more of a philosophy of how like bugs work a little bit too, without getting into like too many specifics. But that one is known. It is very frustrating, huh?
I missed the first part. What is
It's just so the
You're
bug
playing
is
Damba,
if you're
and you
playing,
get back to a wall,
it's
you
not
just-
it's not Damba, so it's
I know
hit
what
scan and with certain walls. It's not all walls, but it's certain ones. You'll see them. I know a lot
Jaguar
more from
Falls is
Jag
the
Falls
bad
is a big
one,
one. There's a couple other maps. Frozen Guard I think has a couple. But when you get into like when you get into a lot of bugs like that. That one obviously is an important one to fix. A lot of we had a lot of more like we have a lot of critical bugs in our back end that are like maybe not critical.
Yeah, I was like critical. I'm like that's
critical.
like game
Yeah,
breaking.
I guess when you say critical, it's more like
Anthony
crash or something.
Anthony is literally the worst person ever at like marking severity.
I've
Everything
gotten
is
so
like
much better at it.
everything is
so much
critical.
better
Like
at it.
critical for us is like your game is gonna crash. Like literally a critical like
So I would mark critical correctly. I mark
the
a
color of
lot of
Shaolin's
things.
arrow tips are
I
the
mark a
wrong
lot of
color
things
on his
medium.
skin.
I mark a
Critical
lot of things
bug from
medium.
Anthony Tamburino.
I mark a lot of things medium that immediately
You have
get
got better.
put to lowest. And
He's jumping to his defense right now. I've gotten better. I fixed it.
I have gotten better. That is accurate. But like you know, you get into different areas of different things in the game, and it's one of the, like, you know, we highlight bugs on patch notes. People will go into like the patch notes later and be like, they fixed a red spot on Cassie's cape in one of her skins. It's like, yeah, that's why we didn't post it on patch notes. That's why we didn't talk about it on patch notes. Like, we talked about things that like had serious gameplay problems, like the Koga stuff and the Aya stuff, and other stuff like that. And there are different ways. Like there are a lot of bugs that like you'll look on patch notes. And maybe you're not the one that's like, yeah, like this one. But there are tons of people out there, like the Koga ones. Like, I saw a shit ton of people on Reddit that were just like, we fixed like client server desync on like Koga shit. Like, sick. Like, there are so many like there are just a bunch of different things, and it's a lot of some of it is what we can reproduce.
Sometimes if you can't repro it, you can't fix it.
You can't fix it. Yeah, I mean, you can do some stuff, but you run the risk of making it worse if you fix it incorrectly. You know. And so like part of it is like how it affects the gameplay or how many people it affects. Part of it is
how critical it is.
How critical it is. Like, if it's a crash. Like, we had a PS4 issue early on in this patch cycle where PS4 had a higher rate of crash, and it was very visible to the players, and players were letting us know, and we were talking with them about it and figuring it out, and that is one that like takes priority over things. Even earlier this year there was a bug where, in very, very rare circumstances, one team couldn't capture the objective. Like, for some rounds, it was extremely rare, and like those are
low priority bugs submitted by Anthony Tamburino.
Yep, that definitely. Team one can't win. Team one can't win game low priority.
Low priority.
And so like those are the kinds of things like that we have a lot of priority on, and so like obviously like hit scan things not working on certain walls is important, because it makes playing, you have to like think about playing around those walls. And if you forget to
balance,
do
right?
if you forget to do
This
that,
is just a no hit scan. Like, oh, this is the no hit scan zone.
If you forget to
Can't use Terminus on any map anymore.
if you forget to like take that into account, it sucks.
Okay.
It is like a little bit less of a like it affects fewer players less often, and so like while it's something that we absolutely want to fix, things like crashes and
they get
things
high
that
priority,
affect
of course, because it's expecting
more priority.
It's making the
we
game
would love
unplayable.
we would love to just fix every bug in the game. Like,
But it's very hard to
God,
do.
because
Because fixing
imagine.
bugs makes more bugs. I
but
mean,
you
that's
can't just like
that's
snap
how
your finger.
production
It's not like snap
game
your
design
finger and
works.
bug fix.
Game
You've got
programming.
like you have
You
to
can't
take
just put
into-
the Band-Aid on
yeah,
it.
you can't.
Yeah.
And that's something that we've been trying to do a lot, like more, is like making fixes that will like
That will
that
last.
will last.
The
Yeah.
hunt has been super successful
Yes.
for us internally. Like, we're super happy with the hunt, and
Hayes, that's what we were just talking about, by the way.
Yeah.
We also had like
Yeah.
a strong. There's definitely a very strong reprioritization of issues, and you'll actually notice it mostly in the fact that you see less features coming into the game recently. Over the last 6 months to a year, that is with us putting programming time into
fixing the years of layering of different things when we were rushing patches out. And
I would say like definitely the current Paladins team is the best it's ever been. Mostly in
at them next time.
Jeez.
mostly in kind of direction. Kind of like what our identity is as Evil Mojo and Paladins. What our priorities are, what we focus on, and I think internally we're very happy, and I think we're actually seeing really good results. And we have been seeing good results.
I mean, I can't disagree.
Both in like not only just from the public in general, but also just like our internal numbers and analytics. Like, everything's been looking good for us.
This is a fun question. Sorry, I saw lasagna box. Is every bug fixable? In theory, we would love every bug to.
Sure.
Like, technically, yes. I mean, you get to a point where you get to a point where it just takes so much time to fix everything. So like you get into a point where like in theory, yes.
While pushing new features and while fixing bugs, I feel like it's impossible to have a bugless game.
We're still a living game, right? Like we're still going to we still have to make content, new champions.
Yeah, and that creates bugs.
Yes.
And the way that
new features.
And the way that you fix bugs again also creates more bugs. It is literally impossible, at least.
Gara, you can't increase infinite numbers any more than they already are infinite.
But how did I win all those arguments when I was a kid by saying
where
infinity
are we
plus
at on
one?
Q&A? Real Q&A, not
real
these,
Q&A.
not these pro player trolls. I know how pro players operate.
There was a genuine. Dethrona has a genuine question, and that I think because when we were talking earlier
about Leviathan.
Yeah, I asked about earlier like what's your end game, and you said Makoa not being first pick, first ban. Obviously, you were joking, but I think that's a serious concern of how good he is, how good the hook ability is, and I think Leviathan is a big part of it. And I even think if you removed every point of bonus health from Leviathan, it would still be the best pick because it removes counterplay.
The CC immunity.
Yep,
yes,
yeah.
I think that's the key, right?
Sounds like we should just bake it into his base kit.
That'd be a scary.
You said
one.
you didn't want Makoa to be first pick, first ban?
That'd be scary.
Or just, I mean, I think you can remove it.
I mean, that's just one thing. I'm not saying it happened. I'm not saying it's on. I'm not saying it's in the patch notes. You say that now until you'll see how much damage that cannon does. You know, and then you'll be like, please, I need all the CC in
I'm quitting this game.
We are shifting a lot of things around. I don't want the I have to pick this because it's CC immunity. I will say that. And I will, again, right, similar to Ruckus, making something better at base doesn't inherently mean I'm not going to change anything else. And it's the scales, right? Opportunity cost, right? If my ultimate is now just generally more powerful, I'm going to have to lose power elsewhere, whether it be in my defensibility with Shell Shield, maybe how fast I can spin, how much damage.
Base
so
HP.
if in theory, that ultimate was now just CC immune because it gameplay-wise feels bad without it, just straight up getting chains. You just get stunned once as a Makoa in that ult, and you're just
it's over.
Yeah,
guess I'm not
feels bad.
going to be doing anything with this.
That depends, how. I think that you can debate the usefulness of that ultimate, and you can get stunned and it can be useless, but you also get full healed when you use it, and just having a second health bar as a tank, we saw how impactful that is as Terminus, but this is more on demand, and Atlas too. It's such a powerful ability.
It's a health refresh too.
Yeah, that's what we're saying. Having that with the CC immunity, I think. It feels bad when you get CC'd, but again, ultimates, I think the fact that they can feel bad in this game is a huge thing and what drove me to play it. And maybe just removing making Leviathan either something else entirely or just giving it the bonus health, I think would allow for way more flexibility. I think half shell. I mean, realistically, pro play, it would probably just be half shell meta.
If there was no,
because you don't need pluck at professional play because your
don't.
team is killing your hook targets anyway. Your damage doesn't
hopefully.
Yeah, so it would probably just end up being half shell meta. But I think that is more dynamic, and at least there is counterplay in terms of Wrecker, at least currently. We don't know the numbers for the next patch.
Yeah,
I think that having that in his base kit would be a little more unhealthy in the terms of having a bit bloated kit, right? We get rid of Cassie CC immunity for that same reason. We don't want the kit to be bloated. If Makoa can just walk at you uncontested, I think that kind of leads into that same exact level of that same dynamic.
Yep.
Can't speak words, dude. It's my job to speak words about this game, and I have to do it.
It's hard.
Just vocabulary vomit. Let's see what else. There's something else there. Gara's talking about Damba and Ying cooldown being used on a Nara wall. That's got to be a bug.
That would be a bug, and yeah, we can look into it for sure.
Oh, he wasn't trolling when he said give the wall more help. I'm like, what is that meme-ass comment?
I thought it
was like, okay.
Yeah, you just said wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a continuation of the conversation that we were
so
already
did I.
having about the hit scan abilities.
No,
being,
I did too.
Yeah.
We were all in the same boat in this room, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll say this genocide. Genocide. I didn't want to
Discord to report bugs in, which they should do.
Rhino is very good about that kind of stuff.
I want to say this to genocide because you have been copy pasting this for the last little while. I was ignoring what you were saying because I wanted to answer more legitimate questions instead of just a statement with a question mark at the end of it, because that's not a question. Do this thing, That's not a question. That's just a sentence with a question mark at the end.
Yeah.
Maybe. You never know what's going to happen. I don't know. These guys don't know technically yet. Yeah, micro knock up on blast damage. Is that a bug or actually intended?
Intended.
Do you think it should? I think that what they're asking for that specifically.
Mostly
because
is
of
this
Talking
miss
about like
accuracy.
EV in hand.
Self
Like if you
or
get
against?
EV
Yeah.
will-
against enemy, because like if you get knocked up by it just a little bit, it can make your shot inaccurate, and like is that intended for that? So okay, they're asking for that specifically because Barrick.
Yeah, definitely
okay.
not fair.
I was like,
Ash
I'm
is
trying
one
to
of
give
those,
your
though.
point.
I was very confused for a second. I was like, yes, yes, yes.
What? Yes, do you think that as a that as like a mechanic, like I think you looking at it on the surface level, it's not harmful, but do you think that players' shots sometimes in a fight just going the other way could be something that like I'm playing Shaolin, right? I get shot at the same time that I fire my arrow, and it just goes randomly off, even though my crosshair was on them, right? Is that something that would be like unhealthy for the player? Like, why didn't my shot connect? Was that a bug? It kind of gives that image too, like even though they don't.
You're
they don't
talking
have
about like
mid-air accuracy.
I'm in that small window, have midair
Yeah.
inaccuracy.
Because if you're
It's all
trading, I mean that's
micro-level,
realistic. If you're trading, right? If Willow's constantly shooting you,
You're mostly looking at like yeah. I mean, you talked about a character that it would be affected literally the most. It is Shaolin.
yeah. Also,
That is
also,
the
also
extreme.
Barrett too, because Barrett can't put down some of his abilities on the ground, right? He has to be on the ground to do a turret. He can't
Lex
do a turret. when he's
also
being shot.
can't.
But I mean, you're talking about
Let's
like
get dash.
you're talking about like me missing 1,000 damage arrow versus me having
Yeah.
to wait a fraction of a second to place a turret down.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like
Yeah, of course.
Shaolin is the extreme, and anyone with slow fire rate would be the extreme. A lot of it is just for gameplay feeling. Like,
know
and it
Vanessa's
is
big with
minor. Obviously, right? Like, anytime you're like, I want everything to be perfect and I don't want to move, I turn off all my camera shake and all my games. But there is something to the feeling of it, and there are micro instances that happens, and I don't necessarily think it's like unhealthy, just because every once in a while I'm inaccurate with my Shaolin arrow.
Yeah.
Because I happen to let it go at that exact 100 or 200 milliseconds.
Betas, apologies. Switch crashes are obviously on the like.
What priority?
list.
What priority did you give them?
That I mean, I'm not even going to joke about that.
Oh,
That,
yeah, I know.
like crashes are always going to be a critical.
Yeah, of course.
No matter what, just because they literally close the client. That's just not good. And it's worse depending on where you are in the game too. But that's always a priority. We're always looking into it. It's like one of those things that we may not be as explicit about it like all of the time. Just be like, but like that is something that we are very very aware of, very explicitly aware of. As for viewing of in-game scoreboards talents, I believe that is already something that console players can do. I don't think you can do it on the hold open scoreboard, but if you do the view scoreboard from the pause menu from the start menu in client, you should be able to swap those tabs on console for the in-game scoreboard.
His question was about the question that was ignored was about rekitting Sky, giving her
Oh, okay.
abilities.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that earlier, mostly when who were we talking about rekits, or is that offline?
We were.
Might
I
have
don't
been
think that was.
offline?
No, I don't think it was offline.
Who was on the show? But essentially, it was just about the general philosophy around talent.
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
just changing something because we're like, well, we could do it differently or better. First off, it's very expensive to rekit. Second off, as a company, we don't get a ton of. We have to put in as much work as like half of a champion, and we don't get the benefit of like what a new champion means to our game, or even close to half of it. Right? There's really not much. You are far more likely to just piss off the players that like Sky than like. It's just like inherently all the players that like Sky now, there's a high chance that they now don't like the new kit, or maybe they think it's different and they just go to a different champion. Versus like who are the new players that are potentially going to be coming in, and then you have to look at like, do I want just one ability change? Also, I don't think Sky needs a rekit. Like I think if we looked at what Sky was like one of the first characters, and if we like redid like, I would say we would probably create a different character now if we looked at. If we wanted a stealth assassin, right, like as a
Would you
theme.
give her a meter stealth instead of a cooldown stealth, similar to what Strix has? You think? Because it does seem a little stacked in Strix's favor in that sense, right? Because Strix has that resource he can use and regen. Sky has to wait through that 10-15 second cooldown.
It's also a significantly more powerful stealth.
Oh,
Sky also has 2 ways to apply stealth.
Yes.
One that keeps reapplying it as well. That's also on a much lower cooldown than the activate at will one. Which
that's
is
also
like
a stationary
which
stealth.
is a
Honestly, smoke bomb would be better on Strix if we're thinking that way, right? Because Strix wants to be stationary, Sky wants to be moving.
for sure.
I'm just using it as an example.
It does depend in those scenarios too. Yeah.
Sorry, I wasn't saying to give Strix smoke bomb. I was just using an example. I see no's in but yeah, no, that wasn't what I was going for specifically.
You just
smoke bombs.
snipe, reapply stealth, snipe, reapply stealth, snipe, reapply
Enter stealth on weapon hit. That's
Ooh, let's go. Pistols too. What?
Finally,
Why character? Oh, this is actually a question I was curious about because, like, I know as someone who I'm gonna go back to harken back to my TF2. Like, it is frustrating sometimes the air inaccuracy on mobile characters. Like, 'cause it's been removed on Eevee, but like Pip with weightless and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean it's something to review for us. I will say specifically, IO was designed to have that mostly because of Skywalker and Moonwalk, right? Like one of her core identities was to like that
be in the air,
be aerial,
be in the air, and also just like her jump, obviously, like to be able to fight when you're falling back. Like those were very intentionally like.
So she doesn't have any air inaccuracy?
No.
Okay.
She was meant because her core gameplay loops around that. I think, right, like Pip is the strongest argument for needing a change.
or BK maybe.
Yeah, BK when you're poppying back, and you have it too. Characters that get knocked up. I mean, like I understand it as like a form of CC, but could it possibly be like put in a way where like the abilities that force knockups maybe also force the mid-air inaccuracy, but only when you're being CC like that? Like maybe Void Grip forces mid-air inaccuracy, but just jumping at that height won't.
Again, kind of talking about like inconsistencies.
You're right.
And just a player like our game. I like to keep our game like. We have a lot going on in our game, and keeping kind of the core mechanics of champions like noob friendly is good. And it's more about like, so it's like I'm always like, if I have weapon and accuracy in air, it is just I'm always going to have it, and if I don't, then it's always that. And it's just very consistent for me as a player to not have to like, why is this thing where when I'm CC'd specifically in the air, I don't have it.
That's true.
And so just gameplay and design wise, we wouldn't do that.
Both stealths are made useless by Illuminate. Well, I mean, it counters stealth, and she's a stealth champion. You force them to get illuminated. It is a change in that.
It's like where you play Amani and there's no other deployables on the team.
Yeah, so you force Bulldozer just by having your ultimate.
as that character. It's just a dynamic that a character brings on the game that changes the way that the in-game item store and the economy are played in that one specific game with that character.
And that's important that we have some of the counters, right? Just like resilience as a defensive counter, but
for sure.
Illuminate as an offensive counter. Like I will say, like games with stealth without stealth counters,
they're rough. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So a lot of unfun. So I'm gonna talk about something design wise real quick. Perception and things coming out of nowhere feel 10 times worse than even if it results in the same thing, but I have a 1 second window to my brain to interpret it. So like a stealth popping out of Sky and killing me or hitting me immediately for 60% damage feels worse than a Sky popping out of stealth. I see it happen, and she has to wait 1 second before dealing 80% damage to my health. And I know those are just some weird crazy numbers I threw out there, but like that would actually feel better despite it being more effective. Just like being able to perceive information. It's just like when you get psychology, like when you get scared. It's just like things that human brain they need to be able to see and start to interpret it for it to just feel better. Things that come out of nowhere are significantly more impactful to how your brain interprets it because it just like getting scared, it immediately goes into overdrive. Yeah. Just like I need to start processing all this information, and it just feels worse.
Same that he mentioned with Strix too, because you're getting sniped across the map.
That is I would say one of the big, both strengths obviously that Strix provides as a sniper, and I will say that is probably why he is results in a lot of frustration. And it's less about the power of it, and it's more about the delivery and how it feels to you as a player.
Like if he had to charge up a shot like Kinessa, but it did 1,600 damage. Like that's what you're saying, right? That would be the comparison.
Yeah, you see the Kinessa coming. You're like, you get mad when you get shot for the same damage, but like you see it coming, and so
And
it's,
she has to
it's
commit to
not
the
as
scope.
big of a
She has to commit to the scope.
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
A little longer.
Kinessa also has this dynamic where she doesn't have to charge up the second shot to full. Like in some scenarios, if someone's
Low enough.
if someone's at
Yeah.
1,600 across the map, you can charge up the first shot, hit him, and then like hit him with like a third, like a 0.5 second
Yeah.
charge. Like you have this different dynamic that like Strix doesn't play, and obviously that feels different to different players. Someone who plays more Kinessa has this dynamic more nailed down. I've watched several different like pro matches where Kinessa will just like know exactly when to fire off to get the last amount of damage, where Strix has to commit that full extra second to like get back into that state.
Rescope, yeah.
Yeah. And Kinessa does not have to do that. She can just like double ping, and it is just a dynamic, but one that players definitely see differently.
So I know people are talking about like, okay, like Strix, or you got into that. I don't inherently think that means you can't do things like that at all. They just need to be very limited in capacity, right? Like we'll never make another EV type champion that's like blinking back and forth and teleporting. Like it's a fun thing. It is not it is not new player friendly, but I also don't think that it's like, oh, we want to change how EV works. Like it's fine, and that's part of Paladins. Like we have that character if that is your play style, but we can't make 8 EVs. You can't have like 8. You can't have 10 characters flying around with
Someone's
hypermobility.
salivating right now. Thinking
We
about
would
EVs
drop
though.
80% of our player base in a day if we made like 10 more characters like EV. We would just lose so many players because most people can't compete in like 180 whip. I'm talking about even PC. Like that's just not something that an average player does.
Play game where you're playing against like 3 PC EVs and a
Yes.
full console
Yes.
other team. Like
And again, I know it's weird, right? But we were kind of talking about this little harken back, but like kind of like outliers are okay as long as they aren't super problem children, right? Like EV is definitely an outlier in crossplay if you are PC facing console players.
Yeah.
Like they can't act. It is harder for them to turn unless they have like max sensitivity, and most players don't play like that, or the average doesn't. So EV does. She actually did rise in win rate slightly. When crossplay was, but she's also not super prevalent. She's not in every game.
She's also hard to play.
So hard to play.
She's so hard to play, even for a PC player. So it's like one of those things where it's like it's an acceptable thing for us that exists in our meta and ecosystem between platforms.
That's why you see like not until like you reach like the top 90% EVs. That's when EV starts to like really see.
Yeah,
see
her
the
like
shit.
high elo ranked win rate is really good.
I wanted to mention this before it goes off screen and I forget. I'm gonna guess this, and you'll tell me if I'm right. The Amani thing, only shooting from right side with fire, is because of the charge up, right? Because the charge always ends on the right side of the screen. It made sense for it to shoot out of the right, whereas ice is constantly coming out of both sides.
Correct.
We also it also is only a dynamic where you're fully charging. If you like do the
Tap
1,000 and then tap it for the if you just need like the last 150 or something,
Yeah.
it can.
They're matching the animations.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was not matching them before.
Correct. It is.
So it's just
That was a bug.
freeze far away.
It is more of a like keeping it in line with the animation. If it still feels weird, I don't know if
That's pretty
something-
sick. I never tested with that.
Yeah, but that was the change that we made. What was patch 7, I believe, that last patch.
What?
That Amani.
the
patch?
Amani?
Oh yeah, I think it was
I
last
think
time.
so.
Yeah, we should end soon. It is almost 10:30, but there are some good questions here.
We got
Let's
question.
power answer.
Yeah, power. So, Gara, why does okay? They want to answer Gara. IO prioritizing healing Luna over teammates if they're stacked. Is that a bug or is that just a targeting thing?
Sorry.
IO prioritizes healing Luna over teammates if they're on top of each other. Should that go the other way, or is that just like unavoidable?
It's a collision size thing.
So Luna has a bigger hitbox.
You're
and
just
that's why?
crossing. Yeah.
Okay.
Another question about Iowa
Is
is
that
the
Sim
alt
Slew?
being touched? Hitbox wise, like are you trying to improve it a
Not
little bit,
anytime
or-
soon. I would like to do another pass, but I need to spend some
A lot
time
of
on
time
it. It is
probably,
not.
yeah,
It is
yeah.
not like. It could use some cleanup. It suffers more from maps than itself.
The map collision. More
It
so
is.
than
It
the
is.
ultimate
We have a
itself.
lot of our maps were not made to be. There's a lot of issues in our process for creating maps before, and there's a lot of weird collision, and that actually is caught like the tech behind IO's IO's ult is pretty sound. It's how it's interacting specifically with certain areas of the maps that's causing problems.
The only I don't think that's a problem, Majora, because I think the flanks are different enough, right? Do you think having damage and flank as separate classes
I
confuses
think
new
it's
player?
fine, and
Yeah.
they're like general identities, and there's obviously like it's like they fit in a box, but the box is big, and then they go around a little
Yeah.
bit, right? You're gonna have some flanks that are closer to damage characters, just like how we talked about Ruckus is basically like he is frontline technically, but I view him as more of a damage
Pip
frontline
is a
hybrid.
support, but he's Grok is a support, but he's basically a damage.
Yes.
Like at this point, and having that I think is interesting, because like you can actually heal with them, but you'll learn over time. Like, wow, this guy's better at healing, but God, I did a lot of damage while I was putting
Like
totems
what's
down.
what's fun? Not oh my God, we have to keep everything in the boxes that we said. Like we made a box, but it's like, well, yeah, but this is fun, and it's slightly in the other box. Like, okay, well, it's fun. I want fun. I want the game to be interesting first, not like, well, we said that every flank has exactly 2 discrete moments of mobility, or like a discrete moment of mobility and defensive. And if we have a flank that's got 2 of those, or like is got 2 movement and no defensive, like, yeah, sure, that doesn't fit in the identity of a flank, like the core identity.
Yeah, be careful hitting the
But
table,
it's-
by the way. The
oh, I'm
it's
sorry.
like dummy loud.
But yeah,
Everyone, one,
it's
two-
they're archetypes that are fluid, not like we have to have all flanks be exactly this style of kit.
Right.
Oh, I'm like yelling compared to what I used to do. I'm sorry.
Louder smile. Chronix.
Sorry.
Chronix, by the way, I loved your Paladin streams with your 3-hour queues. That was fun.
All right, we got any more?
There was some. Oh, there was talking about EV wormhole based kit because it's like
Nope.
so mandatory.
No way.
No way. Okay. I mean something would have to happen in wormhole. What I was thinking, well, one thing we talked about, like if wormholes in base kit, I think flicker has to become your initial blink, heals you for so and so.
Not both
Rather
sides
than
the blink.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The blink back can't heal you with that.
There's so many different dynamic changes that have
Yeah,
to happen.
you would-
If that gets it, like it's basically a rekit. Like you
Yeah.
basically have to change. Maybe not a full rekit, but there are so many dynamics.
The
that you
other,
have to
she would
change
become
with that
so
character.
good because you would be able to play over the moon with it too. You'd be able
No
to snow globe
downside.
with it too. There'd be no downside. Yeah, wormhole should be. Everything would have to get nerfed. Wormhole, flicker, and base kit maybe. I mean, I'm saying that like I have any. I'm saying like I mean that makes more sense than wormhole and base kit because it's less of a command. Wormhole
You're
is
also
so
thinking
good.
about if wormhole goes into base kit, you get a new talent, and you have to think about all the dynamics that you get to play with
What one did
each
we-
of those talents.
What EV talent did we kill?
Heal and ice block reprieve.
And that's a card now. For
That
your
was
fields.
that's right.
Yeah.
We gave it a card,
Yeah.
which just is better.
It just makes it more sense. That kind of effect definitely feels more like a card than a talent, anyways.
Well, what made you guys decide? This because of the bloated kit. We talked about this earlier, but it was because of the bloated kits, right? Why was the burst combo of them not looked at over the ultimate? We talked about this earlier.
Yeah, and there's also I know there's like this idea that like again I will never bring back Death Ball. Certain characters keep that in check. I would rather the character like those characters' identities are like high long range damage, and if we start changing that, then they lose their identity in gameplay. I would rather make them more susceptible to being dove by flanks or getting outplayed or dying, than necessarily start with their damage.
But the nerfs that make that happen would just make them feel worse to play, right? Because you'd have to like
Yes.
add lockouts to
Yeah.
the blast shot, different stuff.
That's
like
the
that.
lot. I know a lot of people in like just add a lockout to the blaster. I'm like that doesn't feel good. Just
doesn't- yeah, it
straight
doesn't
up,
feel good at all.
I play tested it internally
didn't
one
we-
day. I was
didn't
like,
we
man, this
try it?
feels like trash.
Didn't
I
we
hate
try
playing
it?
this.
It was like not.
Yeah, it was. I did it, and I was just like,
Yeah.
one game, I'm like, this just feels bad. It doesn't feel as fun,
Yeah.
and I'm just not gonna pick Cassie.
It's
for it.
one of those things with those characters, like they feel like it's another side of the perception thing where you're like you get hit by like the full combo and you're like, well shit, I just got hit by a lot. But for a majority of players, like that full combo requires a lot of investment and a lot of accuracy to hit consistently.
And it's like when it happens, you're like, damn, this thing's super strong. But like, how often is that happening to you? Like 30 times throughout the match? Like, is the Cassie winning the game
At the top tier.
because they hit that combo
sure.
once?
Yeah.
Sure, but
I'm not
like,
using that as a defense against that.
Yeah.
I'm just making a point.
But like even top tier, right? I going towards I look at picking some bands like Cassie and Leon used to be must picks, and I don't feel like they are anymore.
yeah, I think
They're
Cassie,
still
Cassie is
they're still
higher
high
than Leon now.
high
Correct.
pick
That's
damages.
Yeah.
But like I see many times teams not have either of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like one will be in the game at least. I feel
100%.
but like not both all the time, and sometimes none. But like that to me is like okay, and it's a weird thing, right? I know people are like you balance around win rates. Like win rates are our starting point to identify outliers.
Yeah.
You can't balance to 50. We would never we have never balanced to 50%. Because otherwise, Leon and Cassie would be getting significant buffs. They are more towards the bottom. And again, that goes to they're a little bit more skilled. I know people say auto aim blah, but like if you're only hitting your auto aim stuff and not weaving in your autos, you're not useful.
I'm gonna say that the chat here will definitely not be complaining about Leon's auto aim.
Yeah.
Well, I think we all most people here. This is like mostly competitive. It's only like 80 people, but like
it's still an important point I want to hit.
Yeah.
Mostly just for like
when this gets
what are our
soundbited
thought
to the subreddit.
process like what's our thought process behind these characters
For
and
sure.
balancing them and like
Yeah.
you're like why does this damage character do damage?
I think
because we wanted to.
honestly-
But I understand there's like the nature of like how it's a lot of times it's how it's coming out. And again,
Yeah.
we talked about it before where I think it's okay to have like some fine instances, right? Like Strix out of stealth. Obviously that's really strong and it's like again your brain can't interpret it. And so again that's kind of like Cassie and that is where the feeling of overpowered comes in that aren't actually all the times reflected. It goes back to the Yomi. Player perception is a huge thing about game design. How they feel is sometimes more important than actually what's happening and who's actually winning. Like if I feel good but lose, that to a player is better than like I feel bad and won. Like I didn't have a fun game and won.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we want the player to feel good, obviously. But there are instances where like yes, when Cassie hits her perfect combo and it happened from behind, because I got flanked and didn't notice it. It's going to again feel because it happens so fast. It just feels worse than dying slower.
I did have a question. Like, do you think that people are not happy about how Cassie bursts because a lot of players that have been playing for a long time have this image of her as this higher mobility champion as opposed to a long range damager?
It's a blend. There's definitely like there's a lot of strong thoughts about Cassie that like I think that she has overall been in a good spot, maybe on the strong side, but not as strong as the perception is. That's what I think. I think they are a little bit on the stronger side, but not as like how serious people get when they're discussing it on Twitter or the forums or Reddit or other social outlets. Like it's like this character is breaking the game, and that is absolutely false.
Yeah, that's just Mako and Atlas.
That's Mako and Atlas. But funny enough, those at a pro level are that because you're always hitting the hooks. But like when it comes to the mass,
Makoa
the
falls
masses,
off.
like
for sure.
Makoa isn't overpowered because the hooks aren't coming in as consistently, and it's more actually the follow up isn't there guaranteed. Because like you have
that's why people run pluck in pubs.
Yeah, you have just like a Torvald and an Atlas. They're characters and mechanics that are scaling with both communication and skill. Communication more so.
Yeah.
And so that always again pro play is just a completely different ecosystem and meta that we have to. When I look at I have to think about that and why things are strong there.
And there are outliers like Torvald's pocket damage amp was too much.
Yes.
Even in pubs, like the two, if you just duo in ranked.
Yeah.
For sure. No, for sure. Yeah. But even duoing in ranked is more communication than
exactly.
a vast majority of our
Yeah,
players
that's what I'm saying.
ever
Like
has.
even that little crumb of communication was enough to stack it that hard.
Yeah, for sure.
And what was the thing with Leon? Oh, I wanted to ask how the presence hitbox is bigger than a bullet, right?
Yes, I believe so.
It is slightly wider. Do you
I have
think,
not looked at that in a decent time, but yes, I believe it is.
Do you think that maybe could be part of people don't like getting bursted across the map by Leon? Do you think maybe if we the presence hitbox was reduced to the size of a bullet, that it might make people feel a little bit less worse?
I mean,
about it because it's harder to hit.
Well, I mean, anytime you reduce the projectile size of something, again, it's that's not really going to affect pro players.
Well,
but it will affect.
It's a bigger hit scan though, because it is hit scan, right? It is. I know.
Yes.
It is hit scan.
But again, I still how many more presences are you because even if we reduce the size, we're not going to we wouldn't nuke the size.
No, of course.
But I mean, even with Amani, it'll feel you won't be as consistent with it. Her win rate will go down, but it'll still that doesn't change the fact that it happens, right?
How many hit scan? How many not projectiles? How many larger than bullet size hit scans are there?
I think Khan is one of them with his ult.
I wouldn't even count that. I'm talking about damaging things.
Sorry, what are you trying? What?
How many? Presence is bigger than a bullet, but it is a hit scan.
But I mean, we'd have
how many abilities?
It's not many things. I can't tell you off the top of my head, but it's not many things in the game.
Yeah.
Her ult's not hit scan though, Wretched. That's why I'm asking.
No, the ult is a projectile.
Yeah,
it is.
Well, I think
it is fast.
I don't know why you said that specifically, but
yeah. Sure. He's responding to Bonker's comment about the size.
Yeah.
I think. the size of the
Yeah.
the width of the hitbox.
And I think the ult being big is fine, especially since it's about to
Yeah.
get nerfed too. But I don't know. That's why I think that also kind of leads to, we were talking about inconsistency, and maybe this hit scan thing being so wide could be that kind of, I mean, inconsistency you're saying in a different way of like a base mechanic, but
Yes.
this is a hit scan thing that is bigger than what you'd expect a hit scan to be, maybe kind of skewing that.
I mean, there's part of it too, right? It is an ability that's not coming out frequently, so we want it to be easier to hit, just gameplay wise and feeling wise. When everything becomes hard to hit,
Or other abilities.
you're just talking about like a smaller group of people that can actually enjoy
connect
it.
those constantly.
Again, I'm not going to say I'm going to do it. Like that is, I will answer that yes. She would be less strong if it was harder to hit
Yeah.
one of her abilities.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
fact.
Really?
Anytime you just make
Wow.
things harder to hit, they are now going to, when you're looking at millions of matches, get worse.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
But the guy who's going to hit it every time is still going to hit it every
Yeah.
time.
Do you think the balance? Do you think it could be balanced if that happened because of her abilities being technically super easy to hit? Your other ones, I mean, the abilities hit themselves. Could that lead to like that different dynamic, or should it be more like the abilities are more consistent to hit, but you have to aim the primary fires?
I mean, like it's very dependent on character. We're talking about a very specific character and trying to analyze like at a high level whether this.
Yeah,
one,
you're not wrong. Yeah.
It's again dependent on character and what we want from the character, because we'll actually go in and going like, do you want this character to be more for high skilled players, or do you want this to be more for everybody? And that's definitely a thought, and we know like, okay, this is a character that a lot of people are going to enjoy or like going to be very limited.
I was about to get into that after this
I
question.
tried
You
to.
can go to that.
I tried to make Io hit both,
You're good.
which I think I did.
I think she did, because I think she's pretty popular in pubs.
That was my ultimate goal, was to be like front facing, like I could just jump on and do the healing thing and not really care and throw out Luna, and like a casual player can enjoy. But then also like managing the stun and potentially your air control with Skywalker, that you could do some cooler things.
Yeah,
and
I
like
think
the intelligence behind like how I move the fox or where I move to.
Io is probably like one of the highest skill cap characters that kind of came out recently. Like, there's so many different things you can do with her kit. She's very big on like communication, even on like pro play. Like, teams are so crazy with it.
I need to hit the dummy shit button for a second,
Okay.
which the webcams don't still see, but. Sorry. So we're killing it now, guys. It's been a hell of a fucking. This is probably one of the longest ones.
Yeah.
If anything, but
It was
yeah,
a good one.
That was a good one. We had I think we
lot
had a
of
lot of really
knowledge.
good discussion. A lot more than I expected.
A lot more than I expected to give out to.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give
I
you.
expected nothing, honestly.
I knew I was gonna be like, I'll drop a few things, and we just kept talking. But it's like everything I'm talking about is like, dude, these are just like 1% of each of the things we're talking about. Like, you can't see it. You're a player.
Okay.
Hold on.
Here, he's asking. He's asking. Well, he has the same thing we do, but.
So no.
Oh, I wasn't gonna turn it. I was just.
Here's balance.
Oh, wait.
Not that. Ignore that.
Okay.
Here is phase
Oh
one.
wait! You're just showing me. You're showing me the patch notes on
I'm
Steam,
still
all of them?
scrolling.
He's helping you out.
I'm still scrolling.
All right.
I'm still scrolling.
Oh
I'm
my
still
god!
scrolling. I'm still scrolling.
That was just the supports.
Yeah. Here's the flank. Flanks
That was just the flex.
We haven't flushed. We haven't even done all of them yet.
Jesus. I don't want to know the tank ones. Can it be nothing, dude? It needs
Is
to
this
be
the
nothing.
biggest patch Paladins has ever
Yes.
had?
We're
This is the
touching
biggest patch Paladins has ever had.
I want every character to get something.
They are getting more than one thing each.
Yeah. I mean, like some of it is just like, cool, you have a new card.
Yeah.
But whether it be.
That's a big deal sometimes.
Even if it's not a new card, at least like tweaking the numbers so like you have a different build you can go.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That is my goal. Is that every character, like no matter who you play, there will be something
New
for
for
you to
you.
get excited for. That was one of my goals of this patch. Besides all the meta shit we talked
Yeah.
about, which was like
The
at
Caldar
first
Racer
what I'm
record.
trying to get to, in like how characters are dynamically working with each other throughout all phases of a siege match. Also just like I'm this player and I get this new card, or like I get this new build to experiment with because all the cards of that grouping got buffed.
Yeah, so that's someone started their stream with chain reaction. Host me, please.
Who was it?
It's Maduhek.
You gotta respect the hustle.
do
I
it.
always respect the
Show me.
hustle.
Who else is streaming?
I
Can
want
we-
to
should
check
we
some of
see?
these scrims.
We
Yeah,
can't
I
see.
can. Yeah. Hold on, check it out. Ready? I'll pull this up here.
Okay.
Yo. So I just.
Sorry.
Oh.
Yo, host that guy.
No,
His name is Kevin.
Oh, Kevin FD. He doesn't. He speaks Spanish. I want to host one speaking English.
What's there no one?
Hold on, let me
Jostles
see.
is
Oh,
there.
Jostles is scrimming.
Hold on. Scroll up. Let me see.
Scroll. I usually like to host a little lower than the top. The top is mid-tier
Alright.
right now.
Fair.
There's us.
Hello, us.
Zero Spanish. There's Dodge.
Bolts.
But I like hosting in like single digits. Like
Mhm.
the
Yeah,
big-
no, I
big
like
kick
it.
in the ass.
Host
for
who
it.
you want.
I'll host Jostles. Jostles is a longtime sub of mine. He's also scrimming, so it's competitive play, which my viewers I know they'll like.
Yeah, for sure.
We're gonna host Jostles, everybody. Let me bring this up. This is the next patch that we're
So this is like
discussing.
2
It's
months.
not
from
the damn
now or a
frontier. Yeah.
while from
This is
Yeah.
this is. You got
It's
some
like
wait time.
4 months, 3 months, right?
Yeah, it'll be next year sometime.
Yeah, if we're keeping the 2-month schedule, it's January, right?
Mm.
Because like maybe
That's
later
that's
because-
like around
that's
there.
because
Yeah,
of
is
the,
the
because of the
current goal.
holidays too, right?
Mhm.
It might be pushed back, but like because it's November, and then if we're doing 2 months, it'd be around then. But
Yep.
no one should be here coding over Christmas. But yeah, so if you guys have any shout outs to anybody that you want to throw out while you're here,
Yeah, I want to thank the entire Evil Mojo team because
Hell yeah.
I think team has been super. Just even like there's been a lot of high morale, especially with like IO and Ram. We feel like we're releasing really cool content too. Like again, this team like Paladins has been through a lot. And I know every
Yeah.
person here knows that.
Yep.
And I would like to assure you that internally we have a very strong direction and super happy to work with everyone I am now. And like IO and ROM is not possible without like a million other people. Well, not a million, but a sizable game development team.
If we had 1 million people on our team.
We've been making games left or right with a
Yeah.
million.
Success?
That's actually how you get to 0 bugs. It's a million.
There's
per
a
team.
million people.
Million. Actually, you probably cause more
That's that
bugs.
sweatshop.
No, that's
Yeah.
actually like
Yeah.
that's actually you would get way more
Yeah.
bugs.
the dynamic is like you have so many people trying to make new things that
Yeah.
it's hard to catch up.
one extra programmer, 999,999 extra QA guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, shout outs. Yeah, 100% shout outs to the Evil Mojo team. Everybody I've worked with is awesome. Everybody at Hi-Res is like I love. I've had the last 2 years of my life have been crazy. Just in terms of dynamic, like I like moving down here was awesome, and I get to kind of live my dream. So that's been fucking sick.
I think pretty much everyone in this room is almost in the same boat.
Yeah.
To be honest.
And then obviously like shout outs to my family and my partner of 5.5 years.
I think you're the only person to ever do something so wholesome at the end of Chain Reaction because usually one of the last
try to
ones.
be
Yeah,
a
it's
wholesome
usually
person.
everyone just going like,
Literally,
yeah.
literally,
Hit me up on
everyone's just
Twitter.
Like, yeah, check out that Twitter.
Yo, check,
Yeah.
Actually, I've been losing followers. Evil Mojo.
Uh-oh.
Follow
Uh-oh.
Adanas, guys. What the fuck? No, the worst was we were all sitting there doing shout outs and then Cuss from off screen.
Oh my!
Cuss from off screen goes,
That was great.
shout out to all the white women. They're really doing it for us. And it was just like, I was just like,
But it was like a movie reference. It was, but no one got it. No one was.
But
no
yeah.
one picked it up.
But yeah, my partner of 5.5 years, I moved in with Gabby, and then less than a month later, I moved down here, and Gabby's been very supportive, and that's been awesome. But yeah, if you guys want to get more from us, I meme a lot on this account.
Twitter?
I meme a lot.
follow Adonis too. Oh my god, what am I doing? Follow
Bam,
Adonis
bam.
too. There you go. Follow both of them. Follow
Yeah.
us too if you want to know when Chain Reaction's
And
live.
just
Yeah.
fucking host someone at this point.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
what is
it's
this
alright.
mess of an
It's
Peace
ending?
out, guys. Thank you very much. We will see. Me and him will see you next week. Probably won't be them unless they want to stay here for another 3 hours. Yeah.